Yo, 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 what up, y'all? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another live stream. I got my man, Reality Check Virtual Radio, my homeboy Izzy 420 High. What's good with you, bro?
What's good? What's good? What's good? How you doing, brother?
Chilling, chilling, chilling. So, this is the long awaited part one of the Atlantis lecture. You know what I'm saying? So I already know that everybody gonna be thrilled to hear it. You know what I'm saying? So people will be coming in here pretty soon. So that's what's up. So did you want to say anything, or you know what I'm saying, like give some announcements or anything you got popping off? You gonna give us a stream anytime soon, or what we doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, what we doing?
Oh shit. I don't have anything planned right now because I just got a lot of shit, going on. But
Right.
um, I'm gonna try to get one in pretty soon. I'm gonna try to get a couple in actually in a row. You know what
Yeah,
I
that's
mean?
what's up.
So,
That's what's up.
I got some things that I got in my head that I want to talk about. So,
Right, right.
it'll work.
Yeah, that's what's good. That's what's good. Look at this. We got somebody already in the building. You know what I'm saying?
Drip.
We got Tark in the building. What's good with
Yeah.
you, bro? What's going on with you? All right, bro. So go ahead. I'm about to throw this map up here and let's get it.
Okay, so I had once told people to kind of check out a couple of videos like on Bright Insight. It's another YouTuber on here, and he talks about Atlantis, and this wasn't the first time that I've actually heard this idea. I felt that he puts out a lot of things that to correlate the stories and everything. So basically
What's
this
it
is,
called? Bright Insight?
yeah, Bright Insight, and if you want you can even pull it up. The videos are like 20 minutes long,
Okay.
15-20 minutes. I mean, it's on you if you want to
Bright
show them.
Insights. Is it a white guy?
Yeah, so I do.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it
Yeah, I see
is.
it. So is there a particular video on there that you want to check out, that you want to start
um
out with, or
Well, we can go on there. There it goes. They got Bright Insight Atlantis, right, and then it's Atlantis Part One, Part Two, Part Three. So there's like three parts. You know what I mean? But we can just look at Part One right now. I think Part One is a good one. Um, but just so everybody understands, real quick. You got to know where the story of Atlantis comes, right? So the story of Atlantis comes from Pluto between 428 to 348 BCE, right? And uh, he wrote in the Timaeus and Cretaceous, which was written right around 360, about this land, this mysterious mythological land that people talked about, right? But as we figured out, right, we thought Troy was a myth, right, until they found Troy, right? And a lot of these places we consistently think that they are myths. And one of the biggest reasons why I think like they really, really try to push the myth of Atlantis is because I personally believe Atlantis was real, but I also believe Atlantis was actually in Africa. I also, because a lot of times people don't really understand the histories, right? And so there was like this major wipeout of knowledge and understanding right around um, the driest younger period, which was around 11, 12,000 years ago. And something cataclysmic happened. And so this is like where most of our history comes from 11,000, 12,000 years ago to present, right? But a lot of the archaeologists, they try to act like there wasn't nothing further back than maybe 15 to 20,000 years ago, which I think is absolutely absurd. Um, and I don't, because if you look at the history of humans, Homo sapiens sapien, right? We can date ourselves back to almost 350,000 years, right? So if the archaeologist is right about how long Homo sapiens sapien has been around, what you're basically implying was black folks was too stupid to come up with civilization all the way until 11, 12,000 years ago, which is absolutely absurd, right? And we know it's absurd because we see ancient Kemet, we see Nubia, Timbuktu, we see all of these civilizations that came out way, 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 way before, right? And we know that Timbuktu, Alexandria, we know these, and Kemet had ancient colleges well before anybody in the Western world, i.e., white folks, right, ever even came up with these concepts, right? And they call it, all the way even going forward. Understand that, they look at the Dark Ages, right? In Europe, the Dark Ages was when Europeans were literally sleeping in the same bins as animals, right? They had, diseases were rampant. They didn't have no kind of education. You know, even the kings and queens was like bathing in their own pits, right? So the fact of the matter is these people had nothing. Then comes the Age of Enlightenment, right? Now, the Age of Enlightenment was when the Moors came through, and the Moors actually gave Western civilization any kind of concept of knowledge and understanding. And this is why they call it the Age of Enlightenment, is because they started to learn things that they had never known before. They don't give the credit to black folks. They don't give the credit to the Moors. They don't give the credit of any other people. So the thing is, and they can't have older civilizations that's older than them, right? Because this is the reason why when they talk about Egypt, a lot of times they start right around 300 BCE. They start talking about Egypt around 1600 BCE to about 300 BCE. They do that for a reason, because this is when all these different people started going into Egypt and gaining knowledge. People like Pythagoras, right? And Homer and Pluto and all these people, right? So we have to understand how that shit works the fuck out. Well, this is just another part of African history that they want to cover up. And they want it to seem like, Atlantis was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, or somewhere near, Bahamas or some other place, right? They even recently came out with this idea that Atlantis was actually right by the UK, right? And these are all bunk ideas. None of these ideas float, makes no sense. You know what I mean? So they're always trying to make this idea and this myth of Atlantis to be white, uh, very high in a lot of scientific knowledge and knowledge throughout history, right? They want to act like they were well above their time, but they can't give that kind of credit to black folks. But the truth of the matter is, black folks is the progenitors of all knowledge, right? Africa has always been the progenitor of all kind of knowledge throughout all time. Okay, and so this individual Plato, he wrote, in the Timaeus, that the fact of the matter is that he got his knowledge from ancient Egypt. Okay, he got the story of Atlantis from the kings and queens and the pharaohs of Egypt, and the people that were really keeping track of these things. Okay, um, so it was a story that was told by two Egyptian priests. And I'm probably butchering their names, so please don't judge me on it. It's uh, Xenophilus, and it's spelled Psenophis, of Heliopolis. Okay, and Sunchis, Sonchis, of Sias, is Saia. Okay, and they told them about famous Athenians. These are the people that come from Atlantis, and they told them about all this stuff, right? And all this knowledge was given to this man named Solon. As far as history can tell, Solon, who was, I believe, the father or the teacher of Plato, he was a historian. He was a guy that went around and put down you know, a lot of information, collected knowledge, collected stories from different places. And from what we know of history, a lot of people say that Solon was a very good historical register. So he put out information and he pretty much kept it to what he learned. He didn't try to add, he didn't miss anything. So they say that Solon was a pretty good messenger and he did keep pretty good records. Okay, so which means basically you can kind of trust what he says throughout history, right? And then that information was passed on to Pluto. All right, so that's kind of the story of how this story of Atlantis actually came to be. All right, now, um, if you want, you already pull up the Bright Inside Atlantis Part One?
Yeah, yeah, I got it. What's good,
All right,
everybody? If you guys haven't smashed that like button, make sure that you hit that like button. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure that you hit that bell icon twice. All right, we're gonna check out this video. This is the part one, I think, bro. Let
yeah,
me
good,
let me just make sure. Is this it?
yeah,
Okay. All right. So just tell me when you want me to stop.
all right, cool.
All right.
Not only did the lost city of Atlantis actually exist, but its true location has been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years, completely unnoticed, as we've been looking in all the wrong places for its location, since everyone assumes that it must be under the ocean somewhere, such as in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean or the Mediterranean Sea, which have long been considered to be the most likely places for its existence. And no, I am not about to suggest that Antarctica is the hidden location of Atlantis either. Because in this video, I'm going to use the exact words that Plato used to describe Atlantis, its location, and the geographical land features that surround it, which were recorded in Plato's dialogues, the Critias and the Timaeus. And many people are not even aware that the information contained in Plato's writings of Atlantis actually originate from the ancient Egyptians. And the details that Plato shared of Atlantis, which I'm about to share with you in a side-by-side comparison, will show you that the Rakart structure located in Mauritania, Africa, also commonly referred to as the Eye of the Sahara or the Eye of Africa, which most people have never even heard of, by the way, is the most likely location for the lost city of Atlantis, as it matches so many precise details of what Plato wrote. But it must be mentioned that according to mainstream academics and historians, the
All right. So, do you have do you have the other picture of uh Africa? Do you have that
Yep.
up?
That
Okay.
that map that I just had.
Yeah. Pull it
Yeah,
up
I
real
got you.
quick. All right. And then go deep on the west coast of it towards the bump, you know what I mean? And I want you guys to see this area. It's really, really, really interesting. Google Earth is probably one of the best places to look at this. So when you have a little bit of time, make sure you go pull up Google Earth and then pull up this area and look at everything, this area. It's really, 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 really interesting. Okay. So, and because what you'll see is you'll see certain striations in the earth. You'll see the way the sands are going down, and you'll see a lot of the things. You can't see it on this particular map, but you'll be able to see it there. But what we're talking about is this area is called Mauritania. Okay, it's right below where Morocco would be. Well, not right below, but it's just south of it. And it's just the Sahara land. Okay. And this is why it's so important to know this, because the thing is ancient Kemet, in my personal belief, was either a stronghold or another place where Athenians actually lived, or they were like the Western, that's where the Western African kingdoms thrived. Okay. Now it makes a little bit more sense that they might have had a few different wars with Egypt, but and then they fought with each other. But some people say that. I like to think that maybe there was a little bit more working together rather than just warring. I don't believe you know black folks have just been warring this whole time. You know what I mean? So, and if you look at the structures in Egypt, you can see that they've done magnificent work. And then if you think about everything that the Atlanteans are believed to have had, you have to know that that knowledge came from somewhere. So I think they shared a little bit of knowledge, in my personal belief. That's just me. All right, you can, and I just wanted you guys to see right here on the map where it's at, and I think in this one you'll be able to see it more. If we don't by the end of this video, I'll have him pull it up. So you can keep on going with the video. I'm gonna let him do a lot of the talking because you'll be able to see everything really clearly from his description, and I'll go a little bit deeper into it.
All right, that's what's up, bro. You ready?
Yep.
All right.
Legend of Atlantis is simply fictional and has been commonly referred to as a myth or even pseudo-history, which completely contradicts Plato and Solon, which described an empire referred to as Atlantis, which was known for being technologically advanced, with noble and powerful people possessing vast wealth, luxury, and knowledge, and even military superiority, and is described as being destroyed in a single day and night of misfortune, which caused the island of Atlantis to disappear into the depths of the sea, related to a massive earthquake and likely a tsunami. So first things first, Plato received all the information about Atlantis from Solon, who was his ancestral relative separated by 6 generations. Solon was born in Athens, Greece, some 2,600 years ago, and was an Athenian statesman, lawmaker, and poet, remembered particularly for his efforts to legislate against political corruption and economic and social decline in Athens. He was known to be a person of wisdom and outstanding character. In Solon's later years, he traveled to Egypt in the search of knowledge, and Egypt at that time had the longest documented historical records available. And he visited Neith's temple at Sais, where he learned of the history of Atlantis from a high Egyptian priest who translated the hieroglyphs that were carved into stone within the temple, which also described that Egypt was once a colony of the Empire of Atlantis. And Neith's temple no longer exists today, as it was destroyed long ago when it was consumed by what is now the Nile Delta swamplands. However, thanks to Solon's detailed notes, the information was retained and kept for 6 generations within Plato's family, before it was published by Plato himself in the Critias and the Timaeus dialogues approximately 2,400 years ago. So one of the first things to point out is the supposed date of Atlantis' destruction, according to what Solon had learned while visiting Egypt, which was that the event that destroyed the lost city had occurred 9,000 years earlier, which is a very interesting time frame, considering that Solon visited Egypt 2,600 years ago. And 9,000 years plus 2,600 years equates to 11,600 years before present time today, which just so happens to coincide with the Younger Dryas climate catastrophe, which of course I've discussed in many other videos. Long story short, to anyone that's not familiar or new to the channel, there was a massive change in global temperatures, sea levels fluctuated, a massive extinction event of 75% of mammals in North America occurred. There's even evidence of global fires said to have been larger than the ones that occurred during the extinction event that killed off the dinosaurs, scorching at least 10% of the Earth's land surface. The evidence for this event is scientifically overwhelming and is likely related to a fragmented comet. And the point is that it's very likely that this event is related in some way to the destruction of Atlantis. And for more details, I highly recommend you look into the brilliant work of Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock. But what are the odds that this date of 11,600 years ago would match so perfectly? And that's not the only thing that matches up so closely. Most notably, Atlantis was said to be made up of concentric circles, 3 rings of water and 2 of land. In fact, here are Plato's exact words. There were alternate zones of sea and land, larger and smaller, encircling one another. There were 2 of land and 3 of water, which were turned as if with a lathe, each having its circumference equidistant every way from the center. And here you can see a few animated examples of what people have created based off of Plato's description of Atlantis. Now, compare this to the Ricard structure. Just look at this. The first thing that you must understand when you see this is that this is far larger than it looks. For example, this photo right here was taken from high altitude, and what you're seeing is something around 20 miles across or 32 kilometers. And this particular photo does not even show the entire structure, which is approximately 30 miles or 48 kilometers across. And this site can really only be appreciated from space and satellite imagery, as it covers a vast area. In fact, the Ricard structure wasn't even discovered until the Gemini 4 mission in 1965, and is now a common landmark utilized by astronauts. This thing was hiding in plain sight for thousands of years, but when you look at photos of it from the ground, you have no idea what you're looking at. Only from the sky can you understand that you are part of this massive structure containing circles within circles. And in this example, you can see one of the outer rings in the distance, yet from the ground, it just looks like a hill. It's remarkable at just how much it does resemble an eye, and it makes perfect sense as to why it was given the nickname of the Eye of the Sahara and the Eye of Africa. And by the way, it is located approximately 250 miles or 400 kilometers inland off the coast of West Africa in a very remote area which is rarely visited and again unknown to most people. What's even more fascinating than its size and shape is that scientists do not know what it is or how it was formed, although they do think that it is natural and it was first theorized to have been an impact site from a meteor, but that was ruled out as there is no evidence of an impact. In fact, scientists have never seen anything like this anywhere else throughout the entire world. Their number one guess is that it was probably formed around 100 million years ago as the supercontinent Pangaea was ripped apart by plate tectonics in what is now Africa and South America. They theorize that molten rock was pushed upwards towards the surface, but never made it all the way through, thus creating a dome of rock layers. And they suggest that at some point around 100 million years ago, the eye of the structure erupted, collapsing the bubble which makes up the center part of the structure, and erosion did the rest of the work to create what you see today, which is clearly heavily eroded. But this, of course, is all speculation as it cannot be proven, and again, we've never seen anything like this anywhere else throughout the world. But here's where things start to get really interesting. It just so happens that the diameter of its outer circle is approximately 23.5 kilometers or 14.5 miles, which is basically equivalent to the size and dimensions provided by Plato when converting from stadia to modern measurements. For example, the circular island of Atlantis was described as being 127 stadia. Well, one stadia is 607 feet, and 607 feet times 127 stadia is 77,089 feet. Convert that measurement, and that is 23.5 kilometers. I measured this numerous times on Google Earth, and I got anywhere from 21 kilometers to 24 kilometers. Most of my measurements were 22 kilometers in diameter. And again, this is virtually identical to Plato's and Solon's documentation. And although my own measurements through Google Earth cannot be considered exact, it is unbelievably close. So where we're at so far is that the Ricard structure matches Plato's description of having 3 circles of water and 2 of land, which is what you would see at the Ricard based off its design if there were water flowing into it. And not only that, the diameter of the outer circles matches the size described by Plato within a very small margin, if not identical. But this next detail that Plato describes is extremely interesting. He stated, and quote, "The mountains of the island of Atlantis was celebrated for their number and size and beauty," adding that the surrounding mountains of the city flowed with rivers, and this part of the island looked toward the south and was sheltered from the north. So he is stating that the mountains were on the north side, sheltering the city to the south, which is exactly what you see at the Ricard, and the mountains are on the north side. But not only that, when you look at detailed satellite photography, you can see the evidence of multiple rivers that were spilling over the side of the mountains towards Atlantis. Can you imagine what this place looked like when it wasn't so dry? Just like Plato stated, the mountains of the island of Atlantis were celebrated for their number and size and beauty. And it's a shame that the Ricard is so remote and visited so rarely, as there are so few pictures available of the view of these mountains when standing at ground level. But I can just imagine that these mountains were lush and beautiful green with rivers and waterfalls pouring over these mountains. And the rivers were clearly there. We can see that. So it's certain that this place once looked much differently than the barren, dry desert that we see today. And this clearly matches Plato's description, and it becomes even more compelling when you consider that Plato stated that the city of Atlantis opened up to the sea at the south. Well, look at these photos where you can see that there is an opening at the south of the Ricard structure. So if there was once water here, and if it neighbored the sea, this would further match Plato's description. I mean, doesn't this match what a waterway outlet would look like? And not only that, doesn't the entire region look like it was blasted by flowing water or a tsunami? You can see the striations in the land going from west to east from the ocean. Tell me that this doesn't look like a massive wave or a steady flow of water completely altered the terrain. And it's also worth mentioning that scientists have emphasized that the Ricard is heavily eroded, which the circular walls clearly show us. Now, consider Plato's exact words in regards to the aftermath of the cataclysm. Quote, Atlantis is part of the Atlantic which is no longer accessible by ship. Atlantis, when sunk by the earthquake, became an impassable barrier of mud to voyagers sailing from hence to any part of the ocean. In other words, it became landlocked. Again, if this is the site of Atlantis, and if the details shared by Solon and Plato are true, and if the Ricard structure was the site of Atlantis, then it's not hard to see that perhaps a lot of sand or mud was pushed into Africa from the ocean during some sort of catastrophic event. And let's not forget the key detail that he mentioned regarding that the area surrounding Atlantis was a level plain which was smooth and even. Is this not another match when compared to the Ricard? Because here you can see multiple views and angles of it. And Plato said that Atlantis was sheltered by mountains to the north that were facing the south, and that the south part of Atlantis opened to the sea. So isn't that what we're seeing here, assuming that the ocean was once much further inland? And something else we should consider is that the sands of the Sahara actually originate from the sea. An interesting fact that many people are not aware of. And just to give you a comparison of just how massive this region is, compare it to the size of the United States. Perhaps the remnants of Atlantis are now under the Sahara Desert. Now here is another geological detail that matches Plato's description. He stated, quote, the stone which they quarried was white, another black, and a third red. Going on to say that the main city was constructed with red, black, and white rocks. This region just so happens to have endless amounts of loose rock which match these colors, particularly black and red, but we also see lighter colors mixed in with them as well. And real quick, what you're looking at are a few screenshots from an outstanding documentary titled Visiting Atlantis, which was filmed in 2011 by George S. Alexander and Nathalise Rosen. And this documentary was the inspiration for my video, and I highly recommend you visit their website, visitingatlantis.com, for more details. And in fact, this video is currently only available on the Gaia Network. That documentary goes on to point out that the center island of the Ricard has fresh spring water that flows from it. And this here is a not so great screenshot from that documentary where the locals dug a well to prove that fresh spring water flowed from the center island of the Ricard, despite the fact that the underground water in the surrounding area is all salt water, which is interesting considering that this is 250 miles from the ocean. Perhaps further evidence that this site once met the sea. This detail about the fresh spring water coming out of the center island is significant when you compare it to what Plato said. Quote, the god Poseidon found no difficulty in making special arrangements for the center island, bringing up two springs of water from beneath the earth, one of warm water, the other of cold. And he also specifically stated that a well near the central Acropolis provided the city with fresh water. So let's take a second to consider all the details regarding the Eye of the Sahara and Plato's description of Atlantis. First, Atlantis was said to have been destroyed 11,600 years ago, coinciding precisely with the Younger Dryas climate catastrophe. It's a circular structure that would have been made up of 3 rings of water and 2 of land, which would be the case at the Ricard if it had water in it. It has a diameter of 23.5 kilometers, which matches Plato's description of it. There are mountains to the north, which also have evidence of rivers flowing over them, just as Plato describes. The entire area is surrounded by a vast plain. The south opened up to the sea, which again, if the sea were further inland, it would match the description. And if there was a tsunami that cut Atlantis off from the ocean with mud, as Plato described, then you can see in the satellite imagery how this would be possible. The center island also had fresh spring water, just as described by Plato, and despite the fact that the surrounding area has salt water underground. And the region also has black, red, and lighter color rocks. And there are other details described by Plato that I haven't even mentioned, such as that there were a great number of elephants on the island. And the documentary Visiting Atlantis pointed out that many skeletal remains of elephants have been found in the area and are even depicted on ancient rock art in the area as well. And there are other details to support that there was once a civilization there. For example, the discovered artifacts of tools and gold jewelry. And this is very interesting considering that the Ricard structure is in a remote area of the Western Sahara. But it's not just that. Plato described that Atlantis had an abundance of copper and gold. Well, Mauritania today, their #1 exports are iron, copper, and gold. Now, obviously, when you consider everything that Plato said about it, the Ricard structure is a very compelling case that must be considered. However, there is one significant detail which would exclude this site as a possible location of Atlantis, and that is its elevation being 1,300 feet above sea level. And even though the Earth's sea levels were some 400 feet higher during the height of the last ice age, that is still a considerable gap. That is unless the geography of the region was much different and the land was pushed up due to the movement of plate tectonics, which, let's not forget, the theory proposed by scientists as to the formation of the Ricard structure was that it was, quote, uplifted by molten rock that was pushed towards the surface from underneath. So consider Antarctica as an example in that the bedrock that sits below the continent laying underneath the ice is rising. And this is occurring at a very slow rate, and I am not suggesting that this is exactly what happened to the Ricard structure. I'm simply pointing out that we should consider that some plate movement may happen much quicker under certain situations that we are not yet familiar with. I mean, we were shocked to learn that the 2011 Japanese earthquake and tsunami moved the coast of mainland Japan by 8 feet in a matter of moments, and even shifted the Earth's axis. So we must consider that we don't even know what the Ricard structure is or how it was actually formed. And considering that it is so unusual, we must open our minds to new possibilities. If the Ricard structure is indeed Atlantis, then we have to ask ourselves whether this unusual land feature is natural or could it be man-made? Is it possible that what we're looking at is a man-made creation, or perhaps could it be a combination? A very unusual land feature that humans took over and modified to be an oasis for a civilization. You want to hear another fascinating detail? So the legend of Atlantis states that it was an empire made up of 10 kingdoms, and the island of Atlantis was the capital. And the god Poseidon gave birth to 5 sets of twins, so 10 children, and each one of those children went on to rule each one of those 10 kingdoms. So allegedly, Poseidon had 5 sets of twins. Does anyone want to guess what part of the world has the highest birth rate of twins per capita? Nigeria. That is one interesting fact considering its geographical proximity to Mauritania and the Ricard structure. So although we cannot say with absolute certainty that Atlantis actually existed or that the Ricard structure would be the location of it, it obviously has some very compelling and specific similarities to Solon's and Plato's description. Like I mentioned earlier, according to the experts, Atlantis is just a fictional story that Plato made up to encourage better behavior among governments and its citizens. And modern academics are saying that the story of Atlantis must be false. Yet Plato and Solon were known for their brilliance of mind and strength of character. And this is the only example, at least that I'm aware of, where they were ever accused of lying about something. And the Egyptian description of Atlantis at the Temple of Neith in Sais, Egypt, no longer exists today, although perhaps those stones could be found underneath the Nile River somewhere, but it did exist for several hundred years, possibly a millennia. And I'm having difficulty finding an exact date on the temple's destruction by the Nile River, but it was long after Solon and Plato had died. So why would Solon and Plato lie about something that could be verified back then, as it was common for people to travel to Egypt, and the temple still existed at that time? And by the way, I have to point out something really interesting and, well, honestly, a bit disturbing, which is that if you go to the Wikipedia page of the Ricard structure, you will not find one single word about Atlantis. And when you go to the Atlantis page on Wikipedia, you will not find one single word about the Ricard structure either. In fact, if you go to the page related to various hypotheses for the location of Atlantis, you will not find one single word related to the Ricard structure or the Eye of Africa. Nothing. And guess what else? Wiki has locked their page on Atlantis, only allowing certain unknown individuals the capability of editing the page, but whoever created it certainly made sure to mention the words pseudo-history in the first few sentences for all to see. So there is actually a lot more information to share about what Plato stated about Atlantis, and I was going to share it all in this one video, but this is getting so long, so now I'm going to make a part 2, which will probably be my next video as I already have all the information put together. I may wait, and if some new headline makes the news, I might make that video first, but be expecting that very soon because there are so many details to share about the people of Atlantis and specifics about the kingdom itself, which you will find fascinating because these details haven't really been shared and you wouldn't know about it unless you go looking for the information yourself.
All right, bro. So I'm gonna keep this right here,
Right.
because we'll probably go to that other video.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, that's pretty interesting. Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to everybody that came in the room. Naz, my man, Frozen, Law, what's good with y'all? So yeah, man, break this down because I think everybody is interested to hear about this. You want me to put that Google map back up on the screen? I got the chart structure there.
yeah, you can put the Ricard structure if you want, but for now it's it's whatever. So I want y'all to kind of pay attention to this a little bit because, and I'm actually looking for it right now. I was actually looking for dang, there it is. So check this out. So like if you really start doing a lot of in-depth studying of what ancient pictures and ancient depictions of Atlantis, what you start to notice is that in a lot of these pictures, right, in a lot of these paintings, they have dark-skinned individuals, and I mean a lot of dark-skinned individuals. I think in the next, in the next part when we go into it a little bit deeper, I will find them so I can put them up on the screen. That way, you guys can see them too. Um, and then I'm actually gonna put up some ancient maps also. So there's the Perry Reese map, and when you look at the Perry Reese map, it looks a little bit different. When you look at some of the ancient maps, Africa looks very, very different, right? And this is the thing that I'm talking about, where white folks love to call shit that black folks do myth, right? They always talk about, well, the first people to have writing is Western civilization, when that's just clearly not true. Ancient Kemet really had the first writing, and it's all a matter of perspective because you have to understand what writing actually is, right? Writing is lines that create words that you can actually read out, right? But hieroglyphs are the first type of writing, right? Hieroglyphs is one of the first type, I should say, not the first, but one of the first, right? But they never acknowledge Kemet as being the people who created writing. They always want to give it to somebody else, right? So when you understand everything that they've taken away from Africa in order to put all the onus on white folks, they're talking about his history, his story. That's why it's his story, right? His story, meaning white man's story that he's created to give to you. You know what I mean? So we have to always keep that in mind. Now, this actually would go along with a lot of things because a lot of people don't really understand how ancient Kemet actually came and was built up, but it actually makes a lot of sense that they actually came from another group, i.e., the Atlanteans, right? Um, and then the idea of Poseidon. What a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of the Greek and Roman gods, right? Those Greek gods, Poseidon and all Atlas and all that, that actually comes from Africa. All of those gods are actually African gods put in white face. And people don't really get this, right? This is not a history that they came up with themselves. These are not their gods. They are gods that were given to them and that they kind of appropriated. Again, following what white folks have done throughout history. And I mean, like, people don't really quite understand how prolific white folks are and still are of just taking other people's cultures and history and stories and converting them into theirs. They've done it throughout history, right? So people have to understand exactly the mind frame of white folks on why they would keep this hidden. If they were to say, "Oh man, this is a great hypothesis," you know what I mean? They would then have to admit that civilization did not come from the West, even though we know civilization didn't come from the West because we have ancient Kemet, Nubia, we have the Sudan, we have all of these places that had civilization well before they did, but yet they still try to hold on to the idea of civilization being created by them, right? We know this for a fact, but it doesn't matter, that if you scream this at the top of the lungs, on the highest mountain peak, white folks will just kind of deny it. You see what I'm saying? Because they'll still keep on with this attitude of, black folks was in huts in the jungle and shit, not realizing that Africa is not a jungle at all. It's a fucking, it's a landlocked area. Okay. There's more jungles in Europe than there are in fucking Africa. You understand? This is what people don't really get. There's more jungles everywhere else. There's not jungles in Africa, right? So you have to understand the mindset of people and how they just disturb and distort history. They did it with ancient Kemet. If you look at what is it, Ptolemy, right? That's usually where they always start their talks about Egypt. Okay, Ptolemy was, a white Greek or Roman motherfucker, right? And he became the quote unquote one of the last fucking quote unquote pharaohs, but he was not a true pharaoh. This is another thing that people got to understand. This is where they get all this mixing, where they say the people today in Egypt are really Egyptians, but they're not. The true Egyptians were actually African. It's an African country. This is not for, it doesn't take rocket science to really understand it. A lot of people say, no, North Africa has always had all these other people. No, it hasn't. And this is the problem. But they want to look at history as if it was limited, right? And they want to put the people that you see there as there before, when you're not understanding how history works. Before, 1600 BCE to 300 BCE, they were black. You see what I'm saying? Between 1600 and 300 BCE, you started having an influx of different people coming into the area, Asiatics, white, Mediterranean, all these different people from surrounding areas coming in. And this is why you have that kind of, they have this kind of ruddy, look to them. They're not quite black, but they're not, quite anything else. You understand? So this is what they always try to hide. Another thing that you have to remember is one of the things they said, if you remember in it, he said they mine copper and gold. Okay, pay attention to this. Okay, in that area, what do you also have in that area? Well, you have, Mansa Musa, and you have the history of Mansa Musa. What did Mansa Musa do? He collected a whole bunch of gold. He literally just rocked whole economies when he came through. Okay, and again, he comes from that same general area of Atlantis. Again, going back again, who are the Moors? The Moors were a black group, African group, okay, that had great knowledge. Okay, where did they get their knowledge? Again, they're right around that same area. So what you have is a passing along of information and wealth to the people in that area, i.e., the Moors and the Mansa Musa, the people that were around when Mansa Musa was around, right? So again, you have all of these keys and you have all of this information. Now, this is, and then when you, like I said, when you see the ancient pictures of it in the ancient drawings and paintings and things of that nature, you're seeing a whole bunch of dark-skinned individuals, lots and lots and lots and lots of dark-skinned individuals. And then you had a sprinkling of white individuals or other, colored individuals in Atlantis. Okay. So the reigning group in Atlantis was clearly not white. They were clearly not any other group. They were African people. You see? So again, when we're talking about ancient civilizations, you have to also remember that all DNA comes back to Africa. All of it. You can find every single form of DNA across the board. Asiatic DNA, white DNA, Middle Eastern DNA, all of it can be traced in Africa. Okay? Now, what am I saying? What I'm saying is like you have to understand that you have Africa and the civilizations that Africa made and created, and then you have the plucking of all of that information, all of that knowledge, all of that understanding, everything taken to all these other places around the world. And, you know, this is one of the biggest, first and biggest civilizations in Africa. And I'm sure there were even more civilizations that we'll never, ever, ever, ever know about. But this is probably going to be the furthest back that you're going to be able to get, where, you know, after the younger, before the younger Dryas. Okay. Now, again, I want people to go back here, and I want you guys to pay attention to something. So he said, you know, a lot of people think that there was a big tsunami and there was a, you know, possibly an asteroid or something hit. Again, we know the asteroids hit, and if you go on the maps, and I'll have to do all this next time, but there's, in this map, you can actually see where, you know, major cataclysms happen. And if they had an asteroid that hit into the sea, somewhere around the Atlantic, somewhere, you know, a little bit higher than the Atlantic, what you would get would be mega, 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 mega tsunamis. Those tsunamis would then go up through the way, because again, I have to like really, really show you guys what I mean by this, but it's very evident that there were, you know, different rivers that fell down, the waterfalls from the top area of in the north that he was talking about. That was all forest. This was all forest. Even science has confirmed that that was all forest land. Okay. And they had these rivers that came down that fell into the Ira Cart, right? Which, that was your waterfalls flowing into what I believe is Atlantis. Okay. You have the springs that come up that you heard about him talking. Then you saw that where where it went down south, and that water was a natural beltway into the Atlantic Ocean. Again, there's many different rivers that you can see if you go to Google Earth. All you have to do is go over to Africa, go into the Sahara Desert around this area, and you can see the outlines of many different rivers and many different things before they all dried up and before this massive weather change happened, right? And what you actually will see, it'll look like there was a major, major tsunami that came up, right? Basically swallowed up Atlantis, and then it flushed right back into the ocean. And this is what you see, because you'll see the striations on the ground where there's from west to, or from east to west. It goes up from east to west, and then it comes back down from west to east. This is a sign of a tsunami. When he said, and he kind of glanced over, but it actually makes a lot of sense. If you had a deluge of water that goes all the way up there, and then it all came back down, you would not be able to pass. All that area would be inhabitable. Why? Because all that water is still in all the sand. It would be sand and mud, and it would be destroyed, all that area. You see, so all of these things, you know, they say, well, it was an island though. Yeah, but again, you have to understand how plate tectonics work. You have to understand tsunamis and how they kind of adjust the planet and how they change, you know, certain things that's going on the planet. You know what I mean? And they really change. Again, when you have, you know, something like a meteor that hits the ground and explodes, you know, you're going to have a lot of soot. You're going to have a lot of particles. You're going to have a lot of smoke, burning, fire. All of these things are going to change the land. It's going to change You know what I mean? The temperatures is going to fluctuate. You know, the weather, all of these things are majorly changed. So you have to take all of these things into account. So I think what people are not understanding is that there's a reason why they don't even allow the Eye of Ricard even a possibility as being Atlantis. And it's because, like I said, they don't want you to know your history. They don't want you to know what you've done. Again, they have this thing in America, especially, where they love, love, love to act like our history starts at slavery. You know what I mean? And even in other places, they like to act as if our history started in Nubia or, you know, we're even, and we're not a part of Egypt, and you know our history starts in Nubia, and we were just kind of sitting in huts and shit. No, the place that has the most pyramids is the Sudan. Sudan has the most pyramids. The pyramids were built in Sudan more than anywhere else. This is a clearly black nation. It's always been black. Again, that was taken over and put in a bigger size in Kemet. Okay. When you talk about Timbuktu, a lot of people love to laugh about Timbuktu, but when you actually learn about Timbuktu, Timbuktu was a place of great wealth and knowledge. Timbuktu was a place that even even the ancient Kemetic priests went to study. All of these people went to Timbuktu to study. They were taught by the greatest priests and knowledge tellers at that time. As a matter of fact, one of the people that I had brought up earlier, Pythagoras. Pythagoras even admits that he traveled into Africa for 20 plus years in order to get the knowledge that he procured directly from Africans, right? So the thing is they want to take all of that away. But the more civilizations that we start seeing, the more civilizations that we uncover, they can't hold this narrative any longer. And so what they go out of their way to do is make sure that they have us convinced that we were nothing more than nomadic people for 250,000 years. You know what I mean? 270, 280,000 years, which is bullshit. Like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that even if we were nomadic, we would start to understand agriculture. We would start to understand how things grow and seasons and things like that. And you would naturally start building a civilization. This is not like super rocket science. But the thing is they act like black folks was too stupid to build a civilization. Well, I say bullshit. I say that is absolute nonsense. Black folks was not walking around the continent of Africa for 280,000 fucking years before we decided to build a fucking, a civilization. That's not the way it goes, right? That's not logical. It's not logical thinking. And, white folks really wasn't around like that. You know what I mean? White folks have never really done anything. There wasn't the first time Europe ever fucking, had white folks was about 8,000 years ago. That's facts. Like, a lot of people don't realize this, but black folks was in Europe before white folks was. You see what I'm saying? So this is what you have to understand. And I saw a question in here, which I actually I want to kind of address real quick. How did we fall from grace? And this is a great question. Like a great question. But as far as we can tell, okay, yeah, they don't even mention ancient Zimbabwe either. So you're absolutely right? So the reason why we fell from grace and what it looks like is that a lot of these ancient cultures that we know of, right? A lot of these ancient cultures that were out there, it wasn't really about, the type of, it wasn't like idealism, like Eurocentric idealism. Okay. We conquered things. Yeah, we went to war, but a lot of the things that we were doing as African people was actually trying to acquire as much knowledge as possible. Okay. Um, and so when we got the knowledge, we actually allowed people to come learn all this knowledge. Okay. We allowed them as long as they put in the hard work. And again, I'll go back to my example of what the fuck was his name? I just fucking forgot his name. How the fuck did I forget his fucking name? Pythagoras, right? Pythagoras and Homer and Plato, right? As long as you came in with the intention to learn, the intention to be better, the meaning of knowledge to learn and shit, right? A lot of times, black folks, because again, we had civilization, we allowed that. We allowed the intermingling. We allowed people to come in and learn from us and take it with them, and so they can build their own. See, and this is the thing. A lot of people don't really realize that. Again, African people, we have always been kind of giving people. We want to give. It's kind of like a give take type situation. Yeah, we want to, get things, but we also want to give out knowledge and enlightenment, right? And so when you give out knowledge and enlightenment, and you give people understanding of battle tactics, you give people understanding of building and architecture, and you give them an understanding of religion and spiritualities, these type ideals, right? They can ultimately use all that against you. They can steal it and they can slowly consume you. And then they can win small military battles. And slowly but surely, and you can be easily taken over. Now, you have to take into account that we had younger Dryas, right? And that did a lot of damage to a lot of African, ancient cities and civilizations, right? But you also have to understand the weather changes so people couldn't adapt. So, forces can get weak. They can be easily taken. Again, you got to understand that ancient Kemet wasn't taken until what, the 31st fucking dynasty. So you're talking about almost 28 dynasties before, Kemet was actually taken over. You know what I mean? This is a long time. A lot of people don't realize how long this is. If you actually take the word of some of the pharaoh lists, you're talking according to their books, almost 300, 400,000 years. So we're not talking about a short amount of time, right? Just put that in context with this. America's only been around for what? 400 years, 200 years, technically 200 years, but you know what I mean? So you're talking about this civilization that was around for 400,000 years, according to their books. So we're talking about the end of a civilization that was falling apart towards the end. They were trying to keep up. So it had a lot to do with, the situation, the weather, how weak the army had been getting and their military got, and then how strong these other groups have gotten. So it's over time, it's a natural progression, and it just so happened to be these people who take over a lot and then they change it and they rewrite the whole history. So it's actually a natural progression for civilizations to actually fall eventually and to be taken over, right? So it wasn't like it was they destroyed us at our strongest moment, right? It's not like they took over our civilizations when we were at our strongest. No, they were able to take over our civilizations at our weakest. So always remember that. It wasn't like they weren't going against the true might of ancient Kemet. They was going, against the shambles of what was left of Egypt. They were going through the shambles of what was left of the Sudan and fucking Zimbabwe and motherfucking, Morocco and, all these other places. You see what I'm saying? So it's like it was when they came in at their lowest point. right? And that just automatically gives way to the next people that are there. All right. So that's one of the biggest reasons why, you know, that's how they took away a lot of that greatness from us. And then they just rewrote our history. So it was done very swiftly with battles, stealing the culture, and then literally rewriting the history. All right. So I hope that was a good enough, answer. Do you
Yeah,
have
that's
something?
great. No, this is great. This is all you, bro. You know what I'm saying? This is all you. No wingman. You know what I'm saying? I'm the tech guy today.
Yeah. Right. So so that's kind of that explanation. You know, you have to kind of put everything in its proper bubble, and we're never going to know 100% for sure on a lot of different things, but we can, look at the natural progression of things. We can look at history and civilization that we've known of throughout the years. They always want to talk about, oh, they're in huts and shit. I don't know how many people have ever done this, but go just put in Google and just say castles built in uh in Africa. Just do that, and you will be surprised. Like if you have never done that before, do it. Okay, because what you'll see, because they always act, white folks is always want to acting like, black folks ain't never did shit, right? They want to be like, oh look, we built kingdoms and castles and all these things. No, you didn't. The Moors gave you that information and taught you how to do that. The Moors built your first university in Europe. The Moors did that, not white folks. The Moors built the castles and everything, not white folks. Don't get it twisted. Go look up castles in Africa, and you'll see the ancient castles that was built right out of the mountains, right out of the earth, literally. You see what I'm saying? And you'll see where this true understanding of architecture comes from. The massive buildings in which we've lived. Again, they have this place where they believe in. I think it's Ethiopia, right? I'm almost positive it's Ethiopia, where they literally built these buildings from the land. They built these big ass holes and then created these big ass buildings straight from the land. Like white folks couldn't do that today if their life depended on it. You see what I'm saying? But yet they want to try to convince you that you've never done anything. You lived in huts. We built castles out of mountains. We had statues that nobody had ever seen. The magnificence of Africa was a sight to behold. This is not fucking, this is what they hide from you to make you feel like you're no one. Right? Because we all come from Africa ultimately, whether no matter what you believe you are, right? Ultimately, our bloodline goes back to Africa originally, right? So you have this connection to Africa. But I want y'all to understand that this is not your history. Okay? Real civilization, absolutely. Okay? And then this kind of goes into, after this whole situation that happened, before, 11,000 years ago, it kind of brings up another topic that I actually talk about a lot, right? Which is the misunderstanding of the indigenous people of America, right? And real quick, I just want to quickly jump on this and we can go back. Is this the second video?
Yeah, this is the second video.
Okay. Yeah, before we go into that, I want to get into this really quick understanding because I want people to really understand this. Because this would be at that time when Atlantis was still around. Okay? But the fact of the matter is, between 50,000 and 20,000 years ago, the first people landed in what we call South and North America. Okay? Pay attention, y'all. I want y'all to really pay attention to this shit. Okay? Go and get a book called The First Americans Were African by Dr. David Imhotep. This is a great book. It breaks down everything from the proof to the evidence, uh, the history, the DNA, and everything. Okay, and I want y'all to understand this. After you get that book, you can go get a 3-volume text. It's called Africa and the Discovery of America, Volume 1, 2, and 3. Okay, the books were starting to be read 1920 to 1922, and they go on from there. Okay, a lot of the Africa and the Discovery in America goes so deep into it. It actually gives you literature that was written by the people when they finally got to fucking America. But let me break this down real quick, okay? Because I want you to understand that there was so many more black folks that were out in America well before any white folks got there. Mansa Musa, like we know for a fact, Mansa Musa came over to America. Okay, we know this. Mansa Musa, his brother, pulled out and created all these ships and then went west. Well before anybody in America even thought about this. But we know earlier that we were out there. And let me see. Can you pull up? Can you pull up that real quick? Can you pull up the Atlantic Ocean real quick, please?
Yeah, you want the Atlantic Ocean?
Yeah, that shows the east coast of North America, Central Island, and South America, but also can show Africa too, the west coast of Africa.
Okay, hold on real quick. Let's zoom out.
You didn't know about Mansa Musa coming to the Americas?
So
See,
where are we going?
okay, so Atlantic Ocean is it
Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just see if it has yeah, there you go, Nine Nickels. You already got it, brother. So go to the Atlantic Ocean and get an Atlantic Ocean picture where it has the west coast of Africa, but also has the east coast of South America and North America.
How's that?
Huh?
How's
I
that?
don't see anything.
Oh, you know what? Hold on real quick. My bad. How's that right there?
Okay. Yeah, that is great. That's awesome. Okay. So what I want y'all to know, how many people have heard of how the hurricanes come into America and hit the Central America area and usually hit the East Coast? You know about this, Rob?
No, go ahead. Let's hear it.
All right, so in a lot of I'm a lady. I don't. Oh, okay. I apologize because I did say brother. I think I did. Okay, so I apologize, Nine. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for correcting me. All right. So when you understand weather currents, right, you understand that um, a, a lot of your hurricanes are going to start in closer to the east coast of Africa, but they're going to be in the Atlantic Ocean, and they follow this stream, right? That hits and it does this kind of rounded movement, right? That goes into the Gulf or it hits Florida or it hits this other area, and it does this kind of circle movement. Okay, so and I wish I could I had a clicker that I could point that out to you guys, right? But this is the same thing, this same current that pushes your hurricanes is the same exact current that actually people are able to take to get from the west coast of Africa to the west coast or to the east coast. Now keep that up there. You see that furthest point on the east coast of South America right there, and then the furthest point on the west coast of Africa. Those two areas are actually not as far as many people believe. Okay, and they've actually done this. they've actually been able to take a person in canoe to get from the west coast of Africa to the east coast of South America in about 52 days with just a canoe. No motor, no sails. They were just able to ride the current. Okay. Now, you had another current that went all the way up to the east coast of what is now the United States, which would be right around that New York area. Okay. And that other current would take about I believe it was something like 72 days. Okay. So, what you're seeing is the way that Black folks made it to South America and North America well before anybody else. And the first people that made it to America went from the furthest point in the west coast of Africa to the furthest point on the east coast of what is now South America. Again, this is why you have a lot of Black, folks in this area. People don't really get this. Go look at the tribes in South America. Those tribes are pretty similar to African tribes from Africa, but it goes deeper than that. They travel through South America into Central America, into the little islands, going up through Mexico, and then making their way from the southern half of the United States all the way to the deep east coast of America. Okay? These were your first indigenous people on this land. Okay, period. Now, if you can you pull that screen a little bit lower so it shows Canada?
Yep. Let me see. Yeah, you want me to go? Tell me when to stop.
Okay, stop. Now pull it to the left where it's going to be able to show Alaska. No, the other way. Yeah, that way. Keep on going. All right, right there.
Okay.
That little point, that little area on the further side of your guys' screen is Eurasia. Okay? This is when the Asiatic folks came into America. They went through what we call the Bering Strait, went through Alaska, went down through Canada into United States. Okay? And they settled all through North America. Pay attention, people. Okay? Because this is, but they didn't show up until about, at the earliest, about 15,000 years ago. At the earliest. I don't even honestly, like a lot of people say it's about 20,000, maybe 25,000 years ago. I don't think so. I don't think they have evidence to support that. That's just my opinion. I don't think that European Asiatics actually made it to America until at the earliest 15,000 years ago, at the very latest years ago. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think they have evidence to support anything further back than that. Okay? I think anything that they give you is not, it goes based upon the oldest artifacts that they have and then the claims of the Asiatic native indigenous people. Okay? Now, that's just claims. It doesn't mean shit. It's just what they say. It doesn't mean nothing. But what we can do is we can show this, that there was activity going on in North America up to 125,000 years ago. So my latest projection is within that time span. Because again, at the very latest, I think Africans was on the North American continent at the very latest between 50 and 20,000 years ago. At the very latest.
Right.
Okay?
Shout out to Gabby J. Appreciate you joining. Everybody in the chat, give them a warm welcome for joining Blacklight Revelations. My bad, bro.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But I think there's going to start coming to be more and more evidence that comes out that there was actually activity that was already going on in this land as far back as 150,000 years ago, 100 to 125,000, maybe 150,000 years ago. This is, I think you'll start seeing it slowly but surely. It'll start coming out. They can't withhold all this, forever. So it will come out, and you'll just have to wait for it to come out for my hypothesis to be actually proven. But we do know based upon writings, and again, go read Africa and the Discovery of America by Leo Werner, and that is here. Let me write down his. Let me give you the name. It's Leo Werner. Is Leo, of course. Werner is Winer. You can find all three volumes on Amazon. If they have the paperback, it's going to be cheaper in paperback, but most of the time it's going to be hard to find, and it might be a little bit of pretty penny. Like when I bought the book, they were $100 each volume. Okay, so I spent $300 on all three volumes, right? But if you want something that you can read right now, and it's not going to cost you a whole lot of money, maybe $20, $30, go read The First Americans Were African by Dr. David Imhotep. Now, again, the reason why I give you guys these books is because these are peer-reviewed books. Okay, this is not pseudoscience. This is not, they can't claim it to be pseudoscience. Like if you go get, They Came Before Columbus, as much as I absolutely adore, Ivan Van Sertima, absolutely adore this man because this man was on it before a lot of people was on it. That they will look anybody that gives this kind of information, they will say, "Oh, that's pseudoscience," right? Even though it really wasn't, but they'll say it's pseudoscience. All the books that I'm giving you are absolutely peer reviewed, and they cannot say it's pseudoscience. Okay, so I want you to go look for these books and read what this, Dr. David Imhotep puts down. He shows the DNA, the evidence for, from pottery all the way to what was built. They can show all of these things. The Olmec civilization, all the way going into what we now know of as the Southern United States and the history behind the Southern United States. There's a reason why Native Indigenous people, they have super light skinned Native Indigenous and they have super dark skinned Native Indigenous. If they were all Asiatic and they all came from the same tribes or the same type of individuals, they would usually have the same type of skin tone, right? And they would have that lighter, a little bit more paler, light, tan skin, right? But the fact of the matter is, no, they don't. They actually have darker skin. Not only that, but if you go to the earliest pictures that the Incas and the Olmecs actually drew, they have these people, dark skin, big lips. They look like the caricatures that we see white folks make of us of minstrel shows, right? And again, some of these, they were just the pictures that they draw of the people. But what you notice is they have these braids that don't go backward or go from the front of the head to the back of the head. They actually go from the back of the head to the front of the head, right? And what you actually find out is that there's many tribes. Natural. This is how they braid their hair, right? They are dark-skinned individuals with hair on their big, these big braids that go right down the center of the head, and the end of the braid goes on the front of the head. You see what I'm saying? And you see this over and over and over. When you look at some of the tribal belief systems, right? They actually mirror a lot of indigenous ideals of tribes. Now, they're not exact matches, right? And you have to understand there is a difference of the two. It's slightly different because over time things change, they evolve, things like that. But they also slightly change based upon the material that is found in the place that they are at. Meaning, in Africa, they have certain materials so they can create these very plush, colorful, outfits that they wear. Well, in the Americas, they have to use the things that they have available. And what they have available there is not the same. But what you do see is the bright colors, the dances, and all of these different things that are exactly alike. Okay. Now, again, I'm not saying that the native indigenous or the native Indians, you know, like meant to steal anything. But again, we're talking about the knowledge that Black folks have always passed along, right? And the people at that time passed on their knowledge, and these people took that knowledge and they ran with it and they created their own religion from it. Again, it's passing along information. It's kind of like the game of telephone, right? So I want you guys to see how this works. And I want you to see the progression and the evolution of these things, right? Again, understanding that buildings were built, all of these structures were built, and then you have similar structures from South America all the way to North America that match the structures that were built in Africa, not just a few years ago, but thousands of years ago, further back than 20,000 years ago. This is the magical part of information that flows, right? So if you want, you can go into the second part. I think the second part actually it's going to be a repeat of a lot of the same things. But go ahead and play this, and please make sure that you give credit to Bright Insight on these videos when you do your description, please.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So if one of the moderators can put in the link to this video, actually, I'll do it real quick. And then if you guys can, please make sure that you guys smash the like button. Give me 1 second. I'm about to just grab this link.
You go ahead, and I'm going to talk real quick and on the reason why. And this is where my problem comes with like the Dane Calloway types, y'all. What I just explained to you was a natural progression of what happened. Dane Calloway makes an argument that no, we were always here, as if fucking Black folks kind of evolved there. Okay, this is not the truth. There's a lot of fucking things where Dane Calloway tries to say that, oh, we're Choctaw, no, we're not. We are indigenous to North America, but we are not the Choctaw. We are not the Cherokee. We are not the Lakota. We are not these other motherfuckers. We were our own groups. We were our own tribes. Those tribes have been dissolved, and we don't know the names of those tribes. Yes, we are indigenous to this land, absolutely. But our history comes from Africa, okay? Our classical history comes from Africa. We are indigenous to this land, and we have actual roots on this land before anyone else. But we don't have to steal their culture in order to claim our indigenous nature to this land. We don't need to do that. We are indigenous. We know we're indigenous because we have the evidence. We don't have to fake being Choctaw or Cherokee or any of these other motherfucking things. Like, this is why fucking pseudo fuckheads like Dane Calloway just piss me the fuck off, because what he's doing is he's trying to get you to steal somebody else's culture that has absolutely nothing to do with us. The only reason you would be Choctaw or Cherokee or any of the 5 civilized tribes or Lakota or anything else is because they enslaved you, or they allowed you to be a part of their tribe when we were going through the Western expansion. People, pay attention. The fact of the matter is, if you have Choctaw or Cherokee or any of this in you, it's not because you're indigenous to this land. It's because your family was a part of that motherfucking group during these particular times. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we only have a connection to them through marriage. We have a connection to these people through birthright, like as far as intermarrying, fucking being slaves, or actually living near them. Okay, that's not to say that you couldn't possibly be Choctaw. Yeah, there's a few of us that are Choctaw and Cherokee and all these other motherfucking things. Yeah, you have bloodline through there, but your original bloodline is Africa. Don't get it twisted. You know what I mean? Yeah, and absolutely they were stolen from us. Don't I just in case you did not hear it before. Yes, a lot of that stuff was stolen. And it goes into we do have rights to, the 1861 Indian Act, right? Where the Indian Treaty, in which the 5 civilized tribes actually made a treaty with America. And in that treaty, it actually tells you that the slaves and the black folks that was a part of these tribes had to be granted, true citizenship within that group, i.e. Cherokee and all this. So all the land grabs that was given to the Cherokee, Choctaw, and all these other groups, right? You should have been able to get some of that land, but black folks were isolated out of that because the natives were being greedy as shit, and they didn't want to honor that part of the treaty. So technically, their treaty is void because they're not honoring, making sure that we have the same rights on these Indian reservations. But that is only a select part of the history, right? And I already explained to y'all that, a lot of the tribes that we had and some of the beliefs that we had, right? All of that, yeah, they took pieces of that tribalism that we were bringing, that, the studies, the spiritualism, the religion, the ideas, the dancing, and motherfucker, the rain dances that they do, which is similar to the dances that we do out there in Africa. They took that and they built upon that, and they built their own history with that. And they did take it. You see what I'm saying? So the thing is our ultimate bloodline is African. But our bloodline is so majestic. It's so expansive. It's so big that we are also indigenous. We are also the original European. We are also, people don't get this shit. We are the first Eurasian. We are those people. Like, don't get it twisted. What, you thought fucking Asians were Asians? No, Asians come from a line of people that come from the Quaison people. Again, go to look at the Asiatic countries and go look at the people who are actually casted out to have some of the truest blood. These people look black, Cambodian, okay? Some of the tribes, most of them, all right? Not only that, but they actually did their tests. Their own Asian doctors and DNA guys, they did their own tests. And what did they find out? That they didn't have a closer relationship to Europeans. No. Their bloodline of over 180 different type of Asian groups comes directly from fucking Africa. See, I want y'all to understand it. We are the bloodline. We inhabited these places. Go look at the Quaison people, the Sand people of Africa. This is your classic phenotype of your Asiatic people. That's them. Go look at the original Buddha. The original Buddha was a black woman with bantus in her head. Y'all not hearing me? I'm trying to give it to you. All right. Are you about done?
Who, me? Done?
Yeah.
What was I supposed to be doing? My bad.
Yeah, you said you was doing something.
Oh, no, I'm ready.
Okay.
Bro. I put the link to the video in the chat just in case I forget to mess around and do it on the description box, but it's in the chat, so it's been cited. You know what I'm saying? And let's get it. You know what I'm saying? Let's get it cracking. You know what I'm saying?
Let's get it.
In my previous video, I connected the dots on several truly remarkable similarities between Plato's description of the lost city of Atlantis to that of the mysterious Rikat structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara, which is located in a remote region of the Western Sahara Desert in Mauritania. And in this video, which is essentially part 2, I'm going to share many other specific details that Plato had shared about Atlantis, its empire, that you will not only find fascinating, but will also further support that the Recot structure is indeed the most likely location for the lost city of Atlantis. Because let's not forget the remarkable similarities which I outlined in my previous video, including that Atlantis was said to be made of concentric circles, specifically 3 rings of water and 2 of land, which matches the Recot's design if it had water in it. But even more significant than that, it precisely matches the diameter of what would be the outer wall when converting to modern measurements. This is an unbelievably significant detail. And when you combine other similarities, including that the Recot structure has mountains to the north, with rivers on those mountains, just as Plato described, and that Atlantis was said to open to the sea at the south, which also matches the topography of the Recot structure. That is, if it had at one point met the coast of the ocean, which, yes, there is definitive evidence that it did, as I'll be sharing in just a moment. But furthermore, the entire area surrounding the Recot structure is a massive level plain, with even a portion of it having a rectangular resemblance, similar to what Plato had described. Now, these are not the only similarities that match Plato's and Solon's description of the lost city of Atlantis, and I shared those other details in my prior video. However, there are a few counter-arguments that would suggest that the Eye of the Sahara cannot be the true location of Atlantis. For example, many people still believe that Atlantis was just a myth, that Plato made it up and it never actually existed, but let's not forget that that's what people said about the lost city of Troy. Even the so-called experts said that it was made-up poetry. But that was until it was discovered in Turkey in the 1800s, proven to be true all along. And they said the same exact thing about the lost city of Angkor. They said that it's just a myth and never really existed. But again, that was until they found it in the dense jungle of Cambodia, hidden for centuries until it was rediscovered in the mid-1800s. Now, the most common response I received in my prior video regarding the Recot structure being a possible location of Atlantis were comments that said something to the effect of, the Recot is a natural formation, so no, it cannot be Atlantis. But why would the Recot structure being a natural formation exclude it from being Atlantis? If anything, being a natural formation would further support the possibility that it is Atlantis, especially when you consider the description of its massive size. Do the math on the circumferences of what would be the 3 circles of water. Just how many miles or kilometers of digging/dredging would be required to do this? The amount of earth that they would have to move is mind-boggling and unrealistic, especially without having heavy earth-moving machinery and equipment to do so. I mean, are we to think that the entire massive design of Atlantis would have been a man-made construction? It would make far more sense for Atlantis to have been built upon a natural formation, just as civilizations have been doing for thousands of years throughout the world, and as we are still doing today in many different places. But the most significant argument against the Recot structure being a possible location of Atlantis involves it being hundreds of miles from the ocean and having an elevation of closer to 1,300 feet above sea level. How could the Recot be the location of the capital of Atlantis when it was said to have been an island? Many people have stated that it is simply not possible and that there is no evidence to support that the Recot had met the ocean. However, we must consider one key piece of evidence, which is that all water wells within and in the area around the Recot structure contain exclusively salt water, all the way down to 200 meters below the surface. In fact, only wells that have been drilled to depths exceeding that 200 meters in this region contain fresh water. And this is despite, again, being 500 kilometers inland from the coast and being nearly 1,300 feet above sea level. How did that salt water get there? But perhaps just as significant, the center island is the one place throughout the Recot that produces fresh spring water at surface level, just as Plato described. The significance of these details cannot be overstated. To take this a step further, we must consider the scientific explanation for how the Recot structure was formed, which was that it is a result of magma chambers uplifting molten rock towards the surface. In other words, this area once had a lower elevation than it does now, so is it possible that this area was at sea level some 12,000 years ago? Because according to Plato, Atlantis disappeared 11,600 years ago, which, like I mentioned in my prior video, just so happens to coincide perfectly with the Younger Dryas climate catastrophe, which abruptly ended approximately 11,600 years ago, and was followed by what is referred to as Meltwater Pulse 1b, a sudden and rapid increase in global sea levels. This similarity of 11,600 years ago is another amazing coincidence that furthers my thoughts that the destruction of Atlantis is related to the Younger Dryas event. But some will say that the recot could not have increased to its current elevation of nearly 1,300 feet in just 12,000 years. So we must evaluate empirical scientific data to understand what could be geologically possible over the course of some 12,000 years. Let's consider the example of Antarctica that I used in my prior video and the fact that the continent is rising at a rate of 1.6 inches per year as a result of subsurface activity. 1.6 inches a year. Well, do the math on the recot's elevation, and you will see that even if it was uplifted at a slower rate than Antarctica, it is well within the possibility over this length of time. And here you can see just a few different examples of several outstanding comments I received from viewers who pointed this out and shared their own calculations. Now, using those calculations, take a look at what the area would look like when you account for the difference in elevation and sea level. These images you are seeing are from floodmap.net. Go there and play with the numbers and tell me that this isn't incredibly interesting. And it certainly shows us how this area could have been an island with a large plain, just as Plato described. And it could also provide an explanation as to its location from the Strait of Gibraltar, as no trace of Atlantis has ever been found in the Atlantic Ocean, despite countless searches over the last several decades. Plato also stated that the whole island of Atlantis was said to be towering and steep towards the side of the sea. Could this be possible at the recot? Because look at the Adra Highlands located near the recot. This long rim is 1,500 feet higher than the basin below. And when you view it with the use of flood maps, it's an additional similarity that may match Plato's description. Now, some will look at these flood maps and say, well, yeah, you're just playing with numbers here to make the scenario work. But we're really not, because the known scientific evidence is that the recot structure was uplifted by subsurface magma chambers, thus increasing the surrounding elevation. And we have empirical scientific data that proves that even if the recot was uplifted at a much slower rate of what we already know is possible, such as with the example of Antarctica, it is well within the possibility. And not to mention, there is additional evidence of widespread subsurface volcanic activity in the region, as we can see in the examples of the nearby Canary and Cape Verde Islands, which are just off the coast of West Africa. So clearly, the subsurface activity is widespread and has been ongoing for a considerable length of time. And the very fact that scientists have so many unanswered questions about the nature of the recot structure, it would be foolish to rule out the various possibilities of what could have happened there over the past 12,000 years. Scientists specifically state that the structure went through multiple stages of being pushed up and down to create the incredibly unique design that we see today. Pair that with what Plato stated about Atlantis having sank into the ocean. Perhaps the recot was later pushed back up out of the ocean. Now, another detail that is worth repeating is that Plato specifically stated that there were an abundance of elephants on the island. Well, elephants exist in Mauritania today, and there's even ancient wall art depicting them in caves near the recot structure along with skeletal remains. This detail is small, yet significant, as some of the other suggested locations for Atlantis are in regions of which elephants are not known to ever have existed. Now, these details I just shared are certainly compelling, but where are the artifacts? Where's the evidence that a civilization was ever even there? Well, there actually are a ton of artifacts that have been found in and around the recot structure, and archaeologists do not know what civilization they are from. And this was shared in the documentary Visiting Atlantis, which I mentioned in my prior video, as being one of my sources of information, and I highly recommend that you visit their website, visitingatlantis.com, and follow the link to watch their video. I imagine that this will help the creators of that documentary, but in their video, they show footage of many different artifacts that have been found in and around the recots, including gold jewelry, arrowheads.
So real quick, bro, I just want to ask you, and I want to ask the people in the comments, going through that video, that findingatlantis.com, is that something that you guys would like us to do? Is that a show that you'd be interested in at some point, bro? If that's something that you guys in the comments want to see, type in a 1. If it's not, type in a 2 and let me know, bro.
Yeah.
That's something that you
I think it's worth watching. I think they have a lot of compelling evidence for what they're saying in the video. So I wouldn't have a problem at all. And Jay, we're talking about the same Plato, yes.
All right, well, that's what's up. Well, let us know in the comments if that's a future video that you'd like to see. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Even
we're
stone
getting a
weights
whole
that
bunch of-
resemble ones that are commonly used with fishing nets. They even found hundreds of stone spheres cut with unbelievable precision. All of these artifacts were found in and around the Recot
Can you pause it real quick?
which again is in the middle of nowhere, proving that at some point in the distant
All right. I kind of want you guys to kind of pay attention to those sphere balls. Okay? And again, this is really, really interesting shit. And the reason why I want y'all to pay attention to that is because what do they have in Mexico that they have no idea how they got there?
What do they got?
They got really big spherical balls. They have no idea how got it, like where they came from, how they were made, or anything. Again, going back, you got to look at this, and you can see all of these things. So they're in Mexico, Central America, and I think South America also. So you got to pay attention to this shit, right? A lot of these things that were thought of that couldn't have ever been anywhere, right? And they don't know how they're made, and they don't know how they're done. All of the information has passed, and it went to other places. Pay attention to this shit because all the links are very clear. Like, and it all comes from this one, a lot of this comes from this one place, Atlantis. But again, if you pay attention, you have Atlantis, you have ancient Kemet, you have Timbuktu, you have other surrounding areas, but you have and Nubia, right? And if you pay attention to that, if you look at Atlantis, Nubia, and ancient Kemet, this forms a triangle on the continent of Africa. You see what I'm saying? Now, is that significant? Actually, it kind of the fuck is, right? Because we got these pyramids, right? And again, these are civilizations that worked with each other, right? And so, yeah, they were at wars at certain times. And don't get me wrong, like people go through ebbs and flows, right? So sometimes they're warring, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're warring, sometimes they're not. But still, information is being passed through these three groups. You see what I'm saying? It's just a really interesting, and it's just people have to, kind of connect some of these dots. Again, these are just hypothesized. It's just my theory, right? This is my theory based upon the science, the work that I've done, based upon the studying that I've done. You know what I mean? And it's, and like I said, I think over time people will start to gain more and more understanding, and I think a lot of my theory will come out to be more right than wrong, in just my opinion. Okay. so so go ahead, keep on going. I just wanted to point that out, and I just wanted people to remember those spherical balls, because we see evidence of those spherical balls from South America to North America. It's a crazy connection, but people were not doing this over there for no reason, right? There's a reason why you're making spherical balls. There's a reason why people are doing the things that they're doing. They don't do things just to do them.
Right.
Like a lot of archaeologists try to fucking say. Like, they didn't just build the pyramids just to bury somebody in them. You know what I mean? They didn't, this is just not how we are as humans. We don't do things just for shits and giggles. Like, they assume that they did the same thing then as we do now. But again, we're living in a completely different time now, right? We have technology, we have more room to be comfortable, right? So we tended to do things we tend to build shit that doesn't really fucking matter sometimes, right? But you're looking at a time where, you know, people on an everyday, they had to make sure that they were growing, you know, their food, having their wheats and having their grains, making sure that everything is there so the people could survive. So they are not building just nothing for shits and giggles,
Right.
right? A lot of the things that they're doing, they're making for reasons. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. All right, bro, I'm gonna run it again.
Yep.
Past people did live there. The artifacts may not necessarily be as old as Atlantis, but then again, we do not know who they belong to or from when. But what about remnants of stone structures and buildings? Why haven't they found any of that? Well, unfortunately, nobody has actually gone looking. No heavy equipment has ever been brought to the Recot for excavation, nor has there ever been an archaeological dig. And for all we know, tons of evidence is buried just meters below the surface, which, let's not forget, is a massive area spanning nearly 15 miles across. However, it seems to me that when you consider the surrounding area, it is apparent that it was blasted by a force of flowing water. The Recot itself has been acknowledged to be heavily eroded, which we can all see for ourselves. In my prior video, I suggested that perhaps a tsunami blasted this area going from west to east from the Atlantic Ocean. However, I now think that it is just as likely that this area was blasted by flowing water going from east to west from the Sahara, possibly originating from the Mediterranean Sea, as the topography upon a closer look could possibly support this. Or perhaps more likely, the force of water could have come from ancient lakes that are now known to have existed in the Sahara. For example, the scientific evidence is that the Sahara Desert was once lush green and contained a network of rivers and massive lakes, one of which would be one of the largest in the world today if it still existed, as it covered more than 42,000 square miles, or nearly 109,000 square kilometers of surface area. Even look at this fascinating article from just a couple years ago where they discussed the existence of a massive 500-kilometer river that ran through North Africa, specifically through the country of Mauritania. Something that many people are not aware of is just how recently the climate of the Sahara changed, with some of the most recent evidence indicating that it suddenly went from lush green and covered with lakes and rivers to a barren desert, get this, just 5,000 years ago, with scientists calling it one of the Earth's most dramatic climate shifts. So perhaps the Recot was blasted by what some have referred to as the draining of the Sahara. But getting back to the question of where are the remains of stone buildings and structures, well, to answer that question, we have to understand from which direction the flowing water came from and how strong it was. What we need are experts to evaluate the geography of the area and determine the likely places that we would find debris that would be carried or pushed during such a cataclysmic flood event. We should also consider the possibility that this area was blasted from both west to east and from east to west during two different events.
All right. So if you guys take the time out and you guys go on Google Earth and you kind of go look at this area, you can look at the lands that you're seeing right now, and you can see the striations that are actually going down. And it looks, so you had a major event. I can't quite figure out, you know, if it came up straight from the deep on the coast of the West Coast, or if it came from the Northwest coast up and over. A lot of people don't understand it. I hope this is a video where he brings up the Rock of Gibraltar and shit, and then because that's just north, right? So, or the Pillars of Hercules. I apologize. The Pillars of Hercules. The Pillars of Hercules is just above the forest, or what would have been the forest. And the Pillars of Hercules is where Solon said just beyond the Pillars of Hercules was Atlantis, right? So right at this area on the north face of Africa, you have the lush forest, and then after the lush forest, you go down into the into the Eye of Rakar, and that's where all the waterfalls were. Again, this would have been kind of looked at, especially if they had water that was coming from the north, going through the Rakot structure where you had the waterfalls, and then going all the way down into the sea. and it kind of would have cut off that whole kind of northwest portion of uh, of 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 the continent of Africa, which in a lot of ways you can actually see could possibly even be viewed at as an island, right? And like and the another problem I kind of have is their interpretation of island, the wording, and that is um kind of uh the how they use the word isle was not the same way as the way we use isle. And I know he goes into that either in part 3 or part 4, maybe even this one. I don't know. I can't remember. But that's another thing that people don't really pay attention to. But I just wanted to point that out when you can do, what I mean, when you can um when you look at this area by yourself, you don't need to be some super smart fucking person. You can see the striations in the sand. And I was just telling you how they had mad rivers in that area. You just saw it. But if you go back, you can see these rivers were abundant in this area of Africa. Again, this was like 5,000 years ago, right? And all of this area was abundant in life, and it wasn't this massive desert that we see today. And a lot of people do not take this into account when they think about Africa these days. There you go. You see that now. Scroll down, start scrolling down south where the opening of it is. That's north. There you go. And kind of follow that around. It's, what I mean? And you will start to see, keep on going. Nope, not that way. The other way. Slightly this way. Yep, there you go. Now follow it. Keeping on going that way. And right here is where you start to see. Now go straight down a little bit. And you haven't done this study, so I already know the striations and I know exactly where to look. See right here, and you see all of this going down right here, where you see those little lines going down. I've already done all of this, and if you see right here, look at go straight south.
You said straight south?
Yeah, straight south. You see all that. Now follow that going to the west coast of Africa.
You see, that's this way, right?
Yep. Follow the lighter area. Sorry, bro. I messed up. The lighter area, which is little south, right there. Now follow that line and go straight west coast. And what you see is those are ripples right there. Those are ripples where water would have been. Now go straight down. All of this is sand. And again, look at all of this. This is all evidence that there was major water that went up or came and then went down or just came down. Major water spillage going off the continent, and it goes all the way into the Atlantic Ocean on the west side, west coast. Well, that's a little bit far too, but I just you see all of this. And now pan out real quick. Pan out one more time, and then kind of put it on the west coast edge right there, and you see those striations that's going down towards the water right here. Again, this is very, and it's like you have to kind of play with Google Earth, and you'll be able to see the evidence yourself. All of this goes straight into the water, and it's very interesting. And then when you add it to the fact that there could have been a major tsunami due to an asteroid impact, and water could have rushed up there, or it could have came up and impact closer to the north face. It could have came over the edge, and then it could have just went all the way through and just went one way. There's two possibilities for that. It's whatever you think is more likely. I personally think it came up from the west coast. major tsunamis flooded that whole area and then came rushed back down. That's my personal theory. So, all right, go ahead, Bo. I just wanted to point out those striations that people have to go look at for themselves. You have to see it for yourself before. Don't take my word for it. Go look at it for yourself.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely. Now, before we get into this, what is the significance of those striations again?
Those striations show that something was pushing all of that shit downwards. Okay.
Okay.
Those striations show that there was most likely major water that was coming down and it was going in to the Atlantic Ocean from that side. And
Okay.
it's right around that area. So now what we're talking about, so if you have water, whether it's coming in from the north or you have a tsunami that followed this pathway, it's easily understood that all the water like sunk Atlantis, right? And then they said, oh, it just disappeared, right? It sank underneath the water, right? So for a few years, for a year or so afterwards, the story of Atlantis could have been told and it sunk, right? But then over the years, as that water receded and as that water dried out, right? And as that land is pushed up, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, the island disappears. You see what I'm saying? Where they were saying that it all sunk, it all sunk, it all sunk. Well, it makes sense if there was a major cataclysm and water came in there, right? It disappeared, it sunk, technically. You see what I'm saying? And then it dried out. But people, that history didn't continue on. The people, people that were around there, a lot of Atlanteans died. There were a few survivors, according to, the stories that are told, right? And those are the people that kind of gave out the stories before, right? Those were last remaining individuals. So, and then, the individuals that survived moved around that area, right? And they became some of these other groups that we know of today.
Right. That's what's up. All right, bro. You want me to run this?
Yep, let's
All
run
right.
it.
Let's get it.
And we must understand that most of any remaining structural debris could possibly be hundreds of kilometers away from the recot. We just don't know how strong the force was that came through here. But considering the evidence is so apparent even when viewed from outer space, and after so many thousands of years, I would suggest that it was stronger than anything we ever thought possible. And it seems to me that not only would the city have been completely obliterated and carried or pushed away, but the layers of ground underneath the city would have been taken with it, along with the buildings, the walls, the roads, and everything else included. I mean, just think about how small, localized floods completely remove modern roads and the earth that lies underneath them. Perhaps a massive flood could explain the significant erosion of the recot, and considering that whatever the event was that destroyed Atlantis, it was said to happen in just one day and night. It was not a slow or gradual event, it was essentially apocalyptic. We must wrap our minds around just how long of a period of time 12,000 years is. How many changes of seasons, weather, climate, countless days of storms, rain, and wind erosion to add with it. The recot we see today is certainly different than what it looked like some 12,000 years ago. And it's truly amazing that this site has been completely ignored. And it's even more fascinating that so many people have never even heard of it. I even had comments on my prior video from people from South Africa saying that they had never even heard of this place before. But unfortunately, it does not seem likely that an excavation of this site will happen anytime soon. Take a look at the US Department of State's travel advisory for Mauritania. Press pause to read the specifics, but yeah, that is very unfortunate to say the least. Definitely leave a comment and share what your thoughts are so far on all of this, but now we'll jump into the specifics of the city of Atlantis and its empire. Like I've stated, the city of Atlantis, or the capital, was said to be made up of concentric circles, 3 rings of water and 2 of land. Let's start by discussing the center island, which was said to house the king and royal family, along with their servants and most loyal bodyguards. It was sparsely populated in relation to its actual size, and by the way, these images are artist renditions that people have made, which, although they are very well done, keep in mind they do not reflect the scale in comparison to the size of the actual rings of water and land. And these images also do not account for the elevated nature of the land rings, including the center island, which was essentially a hill. But that said, the center island was the location of the main temple of Poseidon, and one can only imagine what that looked like. The center island also had the fabled Garden of Poseidon, which included exotic trees and fruit, and it had fountains and pools. This area was reserved for the royal elite and high priests only. The citizens of Atlantis did not have access to this island, which was also said to be protected by mighty walls and, of course, the ring of water surrounding it. Now, the second land ring housed the military, which was massive and said to consist of a powerful navy. And the second ring of water was the military harbor that was said to dock at least, get this, 1,200 warships. By the way, could those stone spheres I mentioned earlier have been cannonballs? But 1,200 warships, incredible. And it is estimated that within the second land ring, it housed upwards of 240,000 sailors. This second ring of water also housed the naval stalls and supplies. It had underground docks, soldier training facilities, towers, and guardhouses. This land ring was essentially the military center of the island. It also had a large road that was some 200 meters wide that ran through the middle of the island, encircling the entire ring. This road was also used for horse races. Think about the massive races that would circuit the island. It must have been a sight to see and attracted many people from afar, which it must also be mentioned that many different languages were said to be spoken at Atlantis, further indicating widespread trade and visitation. It seems to me that this place was an absolute fortress. It was protected as an island in the first place and then contained additional islands protected by rings of water within it. How can an invading force ever overtake this place? And if there was ever an uprising of the people, how would they even be able to get to and sack the innermost island where the leaders were, having been protected by water and large walls, and not to mention the entire military in between? You would literally need an air force or advanced artillery or something. Now, the first land ring within the island was the religious sector of the city and was said to be home to a large priesthood. It also had towers and gates and even had hanging gardens as well. Its water ring was a harbor for merchant ships, and it also functioned as a public transport system. Small boats would ferry people from one side of the island to the other, and don't forget how large Atlantis was said to be, so this transport system would definitely be beyond useful. On the other side of the wall would be what we would describe as downtown Atlantis. Here is a quote from Plato. The area between the outer wall and the merchant harbor was densely crowded and busy all day and all night. It has been estimated that the city of Atlantis may have been home to over 1 million people, which is not hard to believe based on its size. And keep in mind that this is half the size of New York City. And we're not talking about Manhattan, we're talking about the entire city. So considering that Atlantis was said to be busy all day and all night, and said to be rich in architecture, bustling with trade, and protected by a great army, and the fact that it connected to the ocean, well, this place was happening. But it is easy to understand how the description of Atlantis...
Real quick, I just want to thank Quentin Foreman for his membership. You know what I'm saying? We definitely appreciate that. That definitely helps the channel. And a lot of times the videos don't get fully monetized. Sometimes, you know, that just doesn't happen. So the memberships most definitely help us to be able to provide more content, more frequent content, and give us resources like articles and different things like that, access to studies that we can read and do videos and content on. So Quentin, thank you for the membership. Everybody in the chat, if y'all could drop some emojis. The memberships are only $1. So anybody who is interested in becoming a member, having a green name, being able to drop those cool emojis, you know what I'm saying? Make sure that y'all do that. Drop some of those dope ass emojis so that you know, maybe people will be like, yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah. And again, I just want y'all to understand something, like real quick before we get back in there. When we're talking about, you know, gods and these ideas of gods, right? Atlas, Poseidon, you know what I mean? This kind of goes into other theories that I have, but again, when we're talking about it, you got to understand Poseidon. If you look at him, you look at his statues, you look at the takes on Poseidon, right? Look at his phenotype. Look at his, you know what I mean? Look at his beard. Look at, the way they kind of show him, right? But Poseidon, along with the phenotype of, the so-called Anunnaki, are similar, right? And the fact of the matter is they look very much the same, especially in the face. These were African gods. These were not white gods. These were not gods of with a whole bunch of white gods and white people. These were African gods. So Atlas and Poseidon and all these supposed Greek gods were actually African, but it was acquiesced by the Greek and turned white over time. Again, we've seen that happen today. Look at the pictures of the so-called Jesus, if you believe in Jesus, right? You always seen a white man. You see Caesar Borgia, right? Because they've turned an African man into a white man. Same thing that they'll do in probably another 200 years if white folks are still doing the shit that they're doing. Next time you see a picture of fucking Tupac, he's gonna be a white dude.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, I want y'all to pay attention to this shit because this is the whitewashing of history where we see this. Now, again, if you understand the history of the Greeks, also, you understand that there were actually lots of black folks in Greek. You know what I mean?
Oh, you know what? I'm glad you mentioned Greek. Let's take a quick break from that
Okay.
and check out these 3 short videos. Hold on
All
real
right.
quick. Hold on real quick.
Yeah. The Greeks and the Romans. A lot of people don't know them.
So check this out. We got 3 real videos, or 3 quick videos. Matter of fact, you can give a review on them and shit. You know what I'm
All
saying?
right. Let's get it.
So let's get it. Let's check it out.
Ah, the Greeks. More than men. They were manly men, fierce in battle, philosophers and profound thinkers. They were the foundation of the white world. And for the Euro clowns, that means the Greeks have to, absolutely must be, white people. From the highest ranking member of the forum to the lowliest slave. Not only that, but every bit of their culture had to come from them, with no outside influence, and certainly nothing from the black world, even though Africa was far closer to them than Europe. Yes, sir, Greece was the quintessential white civilization, with strong, smart white people as far as the eye can see, and not a person of color for 1,000 miles. In fact, the Greeks hated non-whites and made no bones about it.
This is Sparta!
Small wonder the Euro clowns love Greece so much.
Go tell the Spartans, passerby, that here, by Spartan law, we lie.
And lie they did. Lied their asses off. For starters, Greece was the world's first multiracial society. And second, there is no connection between Greece and the Northern Europeans who never get tired of bragging about them. But before we get to how black Greece was, let's address this whole macho Greek myth. Everybody knows that Greece was pretty much known for only 2 things, philosophy and homosexuality. And not just among men. Remember, the word lesbian comes from the Greeks, the term being coined after the Greek island of Lesbos, made famous by the ancient Greek poetess Sappho, who apparently couldn't keep her mind or her hands off of other women. The Greek reputation for homosexuality even made it into pop references for sex, such as anal sex being referred to as doing it Greek style. Up until now, Greek men have been stereotyped by Western civilization as dainty, physically weak, and womanly. But all that changed in the last few years. The United States entertainment industry decided to help butch up the Greeks' image with movies portraying the Greeks as tough guys. Even video games got in on the fun. First came Troy, which tried to make Achilles cool by reinventing him as some sort of badass straight out of the Matrix.
Immortality! Take it! It's yours!
The script seemed to be a paint-by-numbers attempt at making an epic. Lousy dialogue, pretty actors who can't act, lots of fake blood, and characters as flat as cardboard. But Tinseltown was just getting started. Next came Alexander. Oliver Stone wrote better dialogue than Troy, but he was so obsessed with incest, lust, homosexuality, and murder, he forgot about the movie. If he had really wanted to be bold, he would have told his audiences the truth, that most of Alexander's legend is a complete fraud. That he didn't conquer the world. At best, all he conquered was the Mediterranean and select portions of Western Asia. But Oliver Stone is a white man, and the fictional Greece whites have created in their own minds proved too great a temptation for him to resist. Without a care for the facts, he repeated the age-old lie that Alexander the Fake traveled untold thousands of miles to the farthest reaches of the continent in his unstoppable quest to conquer the world. But Stone never bothered to tell his audience that Alexander never went into Africa, which was only a few hundred miles from Greece. So, why did Alexander choose to travel thousands of miles across Asia into the middle of nowhere as opposed to going into Africa, which was only a hop, skip, and a jump away? After the defeat of Darius III, the Persians ceded their imperial holdings to old Alex, and he walked into Egypt without any opposition. Like all Greeks, he knew Nubia was where the Egyptians got their huge gold reserves. So if Alexander was so great, why didn't he simply keep marching south into Nubia and sweep the savage, primitive Negroes aside and take the land, the gold, and the glory? Because Queen Makeda of Ethiopia was waiting on him with a division-strong army of elephants and Ethiopian soldiers. Alex decided to keep heading east in search of enemies who didn't bite back, though his northern European admirers always seemed to conveniently forget that he left the entire continent of Africa untouched. But as ridiculous as Troy and Alexander were, nothing could prepare the world for the outrageous spectacle of 300, which became the magnum opus for white supremacists who clearly saw it for the race war analogy that it was. In that movie, the Greeks were reimagined as uber macho dudes who not only scorned homosexuality, but frequently engaged in superhuman feats of battle. Now, the director of 300, Zack Snyder, is a Jew, so the anti-Arab slant of the film was understandable. But the anti-black slant was not. Whereas the movie Troy went to great lengths to bleach all non-whites from view, 300, on the other hand, took great pains to put blacks into the movie every chance it got, though never in a flattering light. Leonidas is shown disparaging the men of Athens as effeminate.
The Athenians have already turned you down. And if those philosophers and boy lovers...
But the Spartans engaged in rampant homosexuality just like the Athenians did. In fact, their practice was to fight naked, so as to jump on fallen enemy soldiers and, well, you can guess.
Ugh.
Nearly everyone in the movie talks about freedom and resisting slavery. The Greeks in the movie refer to the Persian army as Xerxes' slaves and the slaves of Xerxes. But what Zack Snyder doesn't tell you is that the Greeks had slaves, the Helots, whom they routinely killed as part of their regular training, because a Spartan was required to kill at least one person before he could officially graduate from training and finally be assigned to a unit. The Helots were almost always the target of choice. The Spartans subjected the Helots to a wide variety of humiliations, such as forcing them to drink pure wine until they could barely stand. Then the Spartans brought in their children to laugh and mock the Helots. This was done in order to teach Spartans from an early age have no respect for Helots. So the Spartans committed the same kind of atrocities the movie accuses the Persians of doing. Only the Spartans did far worse.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of shit in there that's he's absolutely right on, especially in the depiction of the movies. Um, like in Troy, Carthage, a lot of people don't realize this, that Carthage was actually African, full African people. They were portrayed in Troy as white folks. Carthage is where Hannibal came from.
Right.
Um, and Carthage had a very, very large population of African folks. Greeks also did too, but a lot of people don't really talk about it. Roman, also large number of African people. Again, we talked about this last time when I told everybody about the Roman emperor, right? One of the last Roman emperors was African. You see, so the fact of the matter is, Africa and Africans have always been in the picture. But if you didn't study this, you would actually never know any of this, which kind of goes back to the point of what I was saying when you look at Poseidon and Atlas and all these different so-called gods who were actually poached from African myth, made into a white European, Eurocentric myth. And when we say anything about it, they say, "Oh, you guys are just trying to take somebody's culture." No, it's just it is what it is. And when you understand history, you know how many people lost their mind when they actually portrayed Hannibal as a black man on the History Channel? They lost. White folks literally lost their fucking mind, right? Which is really funny because they always doing these movies like Egypt, Egypt, the Egyptian God movies and shit. The last Egyptian God movie was full of a whole bunch of white folks. You see what I'm saying? So it's really funny that they did that, but they absolutely lost their shit when when Hannibal was portrayed as a black man, because he was a black man. And Carthage was a black country. See, and so it's very accurate. So I'm not worried about that shit. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
All right. Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, cool. That's what's up. All right. So did you want to which one did you want to go back to that other Atlantis video or?
It's up to you. You call it.
All right, let's see. Let's finish this. Hold on real quick. And then we can go back to part 2 of that other one. If you guys haven't, please make sure you guys smash that like button and hit the bell if you're not subscribed to the channel. You know what I'm saying? That definitely helps your boy out. All right. Again, remember the membership's very cheap. You know what I'm saying? It's only 99 cents. So that definitely helps. You know what I mean? So let's get it.
And we're not talking about Manhattan. We're talking about the entire city. So considering that Atlantis was said to be busy all day and all night, and said to be rich in architecture, bustling with trade, and protected by a great army, and the fact that it connected to the ocean, well, this place was happening. But it is easy to understand how the description of Atlantis may have sounded crazy to people 2,500 years ago when Plato first shared the story. And this brings me back to a quote from Plato, which is, "This tale about Atlantis, though strange, is certainly true, having been attested by Solon, who was the wisest of the 7 sages." And here we are thousands of years later with all of our modern developments. We can certainly wrap our minds around a city that would have been busy all day and all night, bustling with trade and impressive architecture. But that aside, Atlantis wasn't just a city. It was an empire consisting of 10 kingdoms, which were said to be ruled by the 10 children of Poseidon, who were born as 5 sets of twins. It was said to be a vast empire stretching as far away as Italy, and even Egypt was a colony of Atlantis. You'll recall me mentioning in my prior video that the entire legend of Atlantis actually originates from the ancient Egyptians. The fact that Egypt was said to be a colony of Atlantis could further support that Rekot is the location when you consider that they are both on the same continent, at least when compared to other suggested locations of Atlantis, which are much further away. And by the way, something interesting and fun to share, since so many people left comments about it in the prior video, but isn't it amazing at just how much the Rekot looks like an eye? Many people made the comparison to the notable Eye of Horus seen throughout ancient Egypt. And I'm not suggesting that there's a connection here, but it certainly is a unique similarity. And I mean, the Recot even has a bluish appearance to it when viewed from space. But that aside, the fact that an incredible civilization such as Atlantis was said to span such a vast distance and consists of 10 kingdoms.
Real quick, just want to say shout out to Val Williams for the $10 super chat. That definitely helps with the content. You know what I'm saying? It definitely helps to keep the platform going. Shouts out to everybody today for the contributions. Definitely humbled and appreciated. You know what I'm saying? It's just going to help us continue to build and continue to grow and provide you guys with more accurate and better and more frequent content. So as long as that's what you want, that is definitely what all of this will definitely get reinvested for. So you're definitely welcome, Val. I'm glad you guys love information. We are definitely here to give it to you. So make sure that you guys follow us on our other social media. Also, make sure you guys go directly to Izzy's channel and follow him, because Izzy also has a channel here on YouTube. It's Reality Check Virtual Radio. If the mods could put that in, and if the mods could also put our joint channel in, Reality Check Virtual Radio Blacklight Revelations, I would definitely appreciate that. That would definitely help. All right, my bad, bro. Was there anything that you wanted to say?
Yeah, and I am going to start putting up more content. It's just I've been working a lot lately. I'm trying to get up some money. So I'm going to start making a little bit more time, and I will be putting up more content. And I go super deep into a lot of this knowledge. I go super deep into giving you sources. I make sure you guys understand, that any of the work that I'm doing is based upon source work, peer reviewed. I try to put as much peer reviewed work into it. I try to stay away from, pseudoscience and pseudo thought processes. I don't really get into pseudo. And as hard as that is sometimes, to be completely honest, because again, we're dealing with a lot of white folks who try to whitewash everything, right? When you start digging into a lot of this, there are actually white folks was actually pretty honest way back in the day as far as information and a lot of the shit that they put out, not realizing that this was going to be switched and hidden from a lot of people. You know what I mean? So I will be going deeper into all this, and you'll understand it all when I start putting out more work. So hopefully you guys will be here.
Yeah, definitely. So make sure you guys stick around for that. All right. And if you guys haven't smashed that like button, y'all already know what to do. Please help your boy out. Make sure y'all do that.
Really need to reevaluate the age of various megalithic structures found across the region, which we still cannot explain today, including the pyramids of Giza as just one example. We really need to get into the mindset that so many of the unanswered questions and mysteries we have about our ancient past is related to the fact that we were far older than we ever realized, and that civilization, whatever it was or whoever they were wiped out a very long time ago. And all of this has been building upon the videos I've been making since the beginning of this channel, which is that what we were taught in school about our true ancient past is far from it, and that we were far older and advanced than we ever thought. So the question becomes, how old were we and how advanced did we become? But the issue goes beyond what they're teaching or not teaching in school, because you would only really become aware of this information if you go looking for it. You won't find it reported in the media, and the structure that runs most of the scientific and academic community shuns this information. If you followed my channel for a while, you've heard me make many statements about the so-called mainstream. And the topic of human civilization dating back further than 6,000 years ago with the Sumerians is something that they just do not want to talk about. And I've, of course, made this example how they've ignored the most recent scientific data. And one great example is the Great Sphinx's water erosion around its enclosure. And in my prior video, though, I gave the example of the emissions in both the Atlantis.
Yeah, and the thing is what he's saying there is actually like very true, because they don't. Again, the further back in history we go, the blacker the history is. A lot of people You know, I know a lot of people have heard that, but it's just facts. The further back we go, the more we find out that African civilization was the creation and the start of all civilization. The further back we go, we learn that knowledge was passed on from generation to generation to generation. And a lot of this accumulated knowledge that white folks claim to have discovered is all old information that we already had, that they took from us, that they took advantage of. Because a lot of the civilizations, by the time white folks started coming around, we were kind of declining and they were just coming up. So again, going back to the question I was asked earlier, well, how did they take all of our grace? Well, again, it's because of the declining of the civilization, the in the totally the growing of their population, and how destructive they were, and how they were going out of their way to literally destroy everything that we created, everything that we built, all the different, glory days that we had, they wanted to erase from history. You see what I'm saying? Why is that? And it's not because these people are just trying to stay within the boundaries of just what we know. No, because they want to shun everything. When we go back to even Sumer, right, one of the oldest civilizations that we have, they always still want to paint Sumer as in a whole bunch of Middle Eastern people. No, Sumer was full of black folks. Go look up Sumer and what the name means. You see what I'm saying? So, it's the land of the blackheads. Understand this. So the history is our history that they don't want us to know. Why? There's a reason why white folks don't want you to know, because if you know who you are, your lineage and where you come from, and all of the great things that we've done, such as circumnavigate the earth, you know what I mean? Had civilizations, 100,000, 200,000 years ago. If, all the knowledge that we've accumulated, all the things that we knew, the math, the sciences that we created, the ideals, the philosophy, the talks, all of these things, right? What they want to steal all of it. And it does. It comes down to the Iceman inheritance. And you know what I mean? Again, go read the book. This is a book by a white man, the Iceman inheritance, and it is an Iceman aggression. So again, they don't want you to know where all of us come from, because again, if you understand how science works, you understand that white folks are mutants. Okay, what is a mutant, right? And I want y'all to pay attention to this, right? Go look up mutant, okay, and you'll see what it is, right? You'll see that a mutant, right, by definition, let's just put it out there. You know what I mean? Let me see, where is it out? It is with the necessary changes of having been made, right? With the respective differences having been considered, that's mutant. But there is another definition, actually, it's from a different thing, but it's let me get it. Here it is.
You want me to play the video while you're doing that?
Yeah, let me find it.
All right.
Atlantis and Recot Structure Wikipedia pages. Well, I encourage you to go there and visit the View History tab on the Recot Structure page and look at everything that's taken place since I uploaded my prior video on September 4th. Dozens of edits and dozens of deletions by moderators. It was eventually locked, and although things do need to be cited properly, you will still not find one single word that connects either of these two topics together. And whether you
All right,
like
I found it.
Wikipedia or not, we have to acknowledge that Wiki is what shows up.
All right, so real quick, I just want to, mutant, okay, freak, anomaly, okay, and these are other words for it, right? And deviation, freak of nature. Mutant is an anomaly, right? It's a change that is made, but it's an anomalous change, right? Anomaly is something that rarely happens, which means this this idea of Eurocentric whiteness, right? And a lack of pigmentation, this is an anomaly. If you look at the global world, right? Um, the true minority actually is white folks. They only make up about 7% of the global population, 7 to 11%. Okay. Again, all the rest of the people on the planet are melanated individuals. A mutant and an anomaly is something that is not there alone. Okay. You have to understand this. It's an abnormality, abnormal. It's not normal, right? And this is why white folks is so scared, because they understand that they are living in a ticking time bomb, literally. Okay. They cannot keep on going. Pay attention. Who's the number one group that's always going to fertility clinics? White folks. Okay. Why? Because they have low sperm counts. They can't reproduce. Again, white folks will be here for a small amount of time, and then white folks won't be here. Okay. And you have to understand that. So what they're trying to do is make the biggest mark on civilization as they can. You see what I'm saying? So always understand this. You know what I mean? Their time here is finite. We just happen to be in the age that they are around. But there will be a time when they're not, because this planet, in a lot of ways, they are a cancer to the planet. And the planet always does what the planet does. It gets rid of the cancer. Right. And so that's just kind of what it is. But pay attention to all that shit. And they know their time is up. Absolutely, Gabby. You know what I mean? So go ahead, keep on going. I just wanted to make sure people understand how this shit works. And again, this is not me being racist. This is science. All right. I don't call white people mutants just to call them mutants and piss them off. That's what science calls them. Okay. And a mutant is an anomaly. An anomaly is abnormal. These things is what it is. This is not Izzy being racist. This is Izzy telling the truth. So go ahead. You already know what it is.
At the top of Google searches, and is thus a primary source of information to the masses. And regardless of whether the Eye of the Sahara is the true location of Atlantis or not, it is certainly premature and honestly a bit foolish for anyone to rule it out and declare that it could not have been the location of Atlantis. Because make no mistake, this site matches far more aspects about the description of Atlantis than any other proposed site from around the world, including the most specific and precise details. This site, the Recot structure, needs to be studied and excavated, not disregarded and omitted. And for some reason, almost nobody has ever even heard of it. Weird, right? Well, I'll close it up there, but I look forward to reading the comments and seeing what people's thoughts are on all of this. But hit the like button, subscribe. I'm Jimmy, this is Bright Insight, and I have many more videos to come on a whole wide variety of topics.
All right. So again, you guys gotten a pretty good idea of the understanding, and this is kind of the understanding of the history that I'll be teaching, right? And I want y'all to understand, why is this all this so important? Why is it important to, find Atlantis? Well, finding Atlantis isn't the important thing. The history of Black folks is important, right? Being that we are indigenous to this land in North America, being that we are indigenous to pretty much all lands around the world, that's what's important to understand, from the greatness in which we came from, to understand what we have done, what we are capable of. The longest civilizations that ever lived and were ever around were African civilizations. It wasn't European civilization. These are new concepts. Even the concept that they have came up with, like socialism and capitalism and all these all these different types of civilizations. These are white folks' ideals, and none of those civilizations, none of these ideals have ever lasted very long, right? But what has lasted and has persisted throughout time has been African civilization and the and all of the different remnants from when we take it with us. So when we built Atlantis all the way to ancient Kemet, when we came over to South America and we built the different lands over there to Central America, even to North America. You know what I mean? How we went into fucking Asia and how we went to all these different places and we were there building already. All the knowledge that we've acquired throughout time, all of this is a more complete picture of who we are as individuals, where we have been and where we're supposed to go. I often tell people that I love history so much because what history gives you is a roadmap to navigate your way through the present all the way into the future, going multiple generations. Again, because we don't think in those type of ways anymore for some odd reason. Well, it's not for some odd reason. It's because white folks have programmed us as black folks not to think about multiple generations. They have programmed us to think in short, independent time and lifespans. Again, they got this idea from us and they took it, repurposed it, gave it to their other white folks, and told us to forget about it. But we need to start thinking about multiple generations in the future for our kids, and we need to teach them the proper history of who we are, what we've done, and all the things that we can do in the future that we'll be able to do, right? And you can only know who you are if you know your history, right? So, you know, when we talk about all this, please remember, I'm not talking about all this because I'm like, this super fucking pseudo dude and I'm just trying to make everything black. Nah, man, I give credit where credit is due. Not everything needs to be black. But just because I don't believe everything needs to be black, I do want people to understand that we should get the credit for what we deserve. Okay. And the credit for what we deserve is credit for everything from being the indigenous people of this land to having a help in the start of civilization in Central America, South America, in Asia, in Europe, and in Africa. We deserve that, right? We deserve that credit and we deserve to, know that history. So, that's what I want y'all to understand by this. But I do think that it is very interesting that we had, you know, uh, that this idea of Atlantis, uh, where we all previously thought that this was some, European place and or a whole bunch of Europeans and shit. But when the truth start coming out, notice the farther we get back, the blacker shit get. And you just saw how Atlantis just became blacker than fuck. Like, I don't know if you realize this shit, and I'm sure that you guys you didn't totally understand it at first, but black Atlantis and those gods that came from Atlantis just got real fucking black. And that actually goes into, looking at these religions that these people put together, where they didn't really put these religions together. They're gods. The gods that they were praying to were black gods, African gods. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'll tell you something in the recent past that a lot of people don't really know. Stories like Snow White, Cinderella, Rapunzel, these are all actually African myths. These are all African tales. All of them. All the Disney, like a lot of the Disney, movies and shit, they are African tales that were churned white. You see what I'm saying?
Now here goes my
Again,
question:
what's up?
Who wants to have a podcast where that's broken down? If that's something that you guys are interested in, type in a 1. If y'all like, nah, don't talk about that shit, type in a 2.
You know what I mean? But all this shit matters. You see what I'm saying? It does. It really fucking does when you
I
really
agree.
start getting to the little cracks of it. Right? It's like, oh wow, really? Oh, you know what I mean? Like nobody gets this shit. So it's like, all I'm saying is respect who you are, know who you are, right? Know that you are indigenous to North America. Know that you're indigenous to fucking, South America and Central America and Asia and fucking all the different continents. You know what I mean? Like we have been everywhere. That's what we've done. And our stories are just as important as anybody else's stories. And we don't need to steal anybody's culture we don't need to steal anybody's culture, rob anybody else's culture, because our culture is the most rich out of all cultures.
I
Don't ever
agree.
get that shit twisted.
I think that this video should get this video should get 1 million views. That's what I think. If you guys agree that this video should get 1 million views, type in a 1, share it out, hit the like button. If you don't think it should be 1 million views, thumbs down it and tell me to shut up.
Right? It is what it is. And I know a lot of people, the more white people that see this, the more they're going to be like, this is pseudo as fuck. You know what I mean?
The sources are all in the description box, so they can
Right.
debunk them one by one. They
Right.
can,
And
they can, never mind. Go ahead.
yeah, but also I want you to I want to give you another book too. Again, because I like to give you guys books and the sources to come out. There's a book that just came out not too long ago, written by a Spanish individual, I believe. I can't remember his exact name, but the book actually, let me pull it. Let me. It's called Atlantis 2021: Lost Continent Discovered. Okay, and it was written by Carlos Bisilegia, something like that. I can't. I'll just spell his last name. It's Carlos, and his last name is Bisceglia. Now, this book isn't originally written in English, so you have to find the English version. And actually, the only way I was actually able to find this book in English was I had to go to international Amazon, and I had to order it from international Amazon in the English translation. Okay, um, and this is a great book pointing out every single detail of why the Ricard is actually Atlantis. This book is phenomenal, right? It goes into the history, the people, the people of Mer and Ma, right? It goes into the Egyptian tales. It goes into, the politics of Atlantis, the island of Atlantis. You know what I mean? Radiocarbon dating, the Mediterranean Sea before Mediterranean Sea, the different stories, the lost Athens and the Atlantis War. It's just a phenomenal book, and it goes into all of this history. And so again, I gave you guys 4 books tonight that is very good books to kind of cement my argument and what I've been saying. Again, Atlantis 2021, written by Carlos, last name spelt Bisceglia. The first Americans were African, written by Dr. David Emotet, and African and the Discovery of America, volume 1, 2, and 3 by Leo Werner. Again, his last name is spelled, and the Africa and Discovery of America, volume 1, 2, and 3 are absolutely phenomenal books. It takes writings directly, classical writings, letters and stories, that show Africans were in America. Leo Werner, his last name is spelled Wiener. Go check out these books. Go find them. Read for yourself. Gain some knowledge. And when you get done with that, I got mounds and mounds and mounds of more books to give you.
Facts.
So
let's check a little bit of this out before we get off of here.
yep.
The subject of the origins and foundations of what we know today as Western civilization. One school of thought is that it is distinctly African or Afro-Asian in origin. The other, that Western civilization in large measure is the bequest of ancient Greece. Make no mistake, this is not a mere difference of opinion in the ivory tower. The battle itself has become an allegory for something as important as the debate itself. Academic insurgents have breached the ramparts of the academy's high priesthood, and the battle is as much for the authority to write history and for how to write history. Our task tonight is to ferret out the truth insofar as we can discern it, but more importantly, to question and challenge. And we have four incredible people with us tonight, and I'd like to introduce them to you and have them come to the stage as they're introduced. Already on stage is Professor John Henrik Clarke. They were standing for you, Dr. Clarke. Teacher, historian, writer, lecturer, John Henrik Clarke is a unique resource and a special institution in the African world. Beginning in his early years, Dr. Clarke studied the world history of African people and became a master teacher. He has authored and/or edited more than 30 books, short stories, and pamphlets on African and African American history, and is distinguished professor emeritus.
Hey, bro, can you list those books again? And to the moderators, the people that come around all the time, if you guys can type in the names as Izzy says it of the books, that would be great. And I'll put them up on the screen too as they come in. So go ahead, bro.
The first book that I want you guys to go get is Atlantis 2021. Lost Continent Discovered. Look for Atlantis 2021. The author's name is Carlos, last name spelled Bisceglia.
Yeah, one more time, bro.
What the name?
Yeah, the title and the author's name.
Okay, Atlantis 2021. Lost Continent Discovered. Written by Carlos, Carlos, last name spelled, I can't say his last name, I don't want to butcher it, but it's Bisceglia.
It looks like Bisceglia.
Yeah, something
Bisceglia, something like that.
Right. The book number 2, Africa and the Discovery of America. Africa and the Discovery of America. Volume 1, 2, and 3. All written by Leo Werner.
Warner.
Wiener. Okay. And then the last book is The First Americans Were African. Try to get the latest version. You don't have to get the first because actually there's 3 different editions. Get the latest edition,
What's good,
which
DJ
is
Elmo?
the revised and revisited edition. Um, and that is written by Dr. David Imhotep.
All right.
All right. Again, these are all scholarship books. You can find them on Kent. You can find Atlantis 2021 on Amazon, just to let you guys know. And you can put it onto your Kindle. You can actually get the First Americas. Let me see. The First Americans Were Africans, and let me give you the, because I said it's the revised and revisited. Okay, this I apologize. The second edition. This is the second or third edition. It's expanded and revised. Okay,
Expanded and revised.
yeah, and that's Dr. David Imhotep, PhD. That can be found on Kindle and Amazon, so you can order on Amazon and put it on a Kindle, or download the app, the Kindle app, and transfer it over there.
And we can just go into that book on here too, eventually.
Yeah, I can go deep into that. And then Africa and Discovery of America, you can find online on Amazon also, if you can find the paperback, if you like the physical book. But if you want, if you don't mind a digital copy, you should be able to go on and at least get volume 2 and 3. Let me make sure because I got it on my phone. So I believe it's 2 and 3. On a website called book.org. It's book.org, but it's actually b-ok.org. Okay, so b-ok.org. If you have an iPhone, it's easy to do. If you have anything other than an iPhone, I really don't know because I don't have nothing other than iPhone. So you'd have to figure it out. But you should be able to, if you have an app that you can transfer it to, and you know what to order it in, whether it be Mobi, and you'll understand this. If you have an iPhone, though, all you have to do is look for an EPUB version of whatever book that you want. EPUB, so it's EPUB, a version, and then download it right onto your phone. This will save you a lot of money, and so you should be able to find it on there. Okay, so I hope that gets you everything you need. And if you have an iPhone, keep that website locked in. Okay, it's a virtual library. It's b-ok.org.
Can one of
And
the mods put that in as a hyperlink? Can you say it one more time, bro?
yeah, it's b-ok.org. Okay. Get this, make sure you have this link, because anybody that has an iPhone, and if you know how to do it with your Samsung, you can figure it out. It's not very hard. Anybody that gets this, a lot of the books that I talk about, you'll be able to use this source in order to get some of these books. Like one of the best books that you should be reading today is From Here to Equality. If you haven't read this book, you need to go read the book. It's about reparations and a whole bunch of other shit, right? You can find this book on book.org. You know what I mean? So like a lot of the things that I talk about, I'll be able to give you sources, and I'll be able to give you a way to get a lot of these books. Some of them I won't be able to, and you'll just have to cough up the money for them. You know what I mean? Like there's a few books that I paid like $300 for that you won't find anywhere, and
See,
you'll
that's that
have
kind of
to.
stuff. You know, you guys see Izzy's Venmo and Cash App running across the bottom, and the super chats and memberships. That's the kind of stuff that I put on that stuff. And like I said, you know, as far as members only goes, I'm more than happy to show any receipts, you know what I mean, of purchases of the things that I put back into the content. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, just the only thing that the only resource that I cannot get that I need more of is time. But, you know, I can try to work as efficiently as I can and try to back everything up, you know, just in case they try to go on a massive deletion spree. But
Mhm.
you know, that's exactly what I do with that money. I directly put it back into the platform. And like I said, on the members only tabs, if you guys want receipts, invoices, whatever, be more than happy to post screenshots.
Right. And real quick, Skrill's, um, I think I think they came before Columbus is an excellent book to get you started. I think it's a really, really, really good really good book, great read to get started. Um, it is not looked at as an academic book. I Not in modern academia. Actually, modern academia kind of shot it down, and they constantly sit around and they say that it's pseudo and a whole bunch of other shit. That's why the books that I gave you today are actually peer reviewed books. But I do think that's a great book, and if you have a chance to get your hands on it, please go get that book. Please, please, please support Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. Great author, great historian. This guy was an academic. It's just that they love to shit on black authors. Okay, a lot of the stuff that's in from they came from Columbus is is kind of like just it's evidence, right? There's a lot of evidence in there, but it's not really super conclusive evidence, right? Meaning that it's like a circumstantial case against somebody, right? So this is that book is a circumstantial case for Africans coming to America. Um, it's not it's not like actual evidence and DNA and things like that. You're gonna get the actual DNA and the actual evidence, physical evidence. In Dr. David Emotep's book, they came. You know, the first Americans were African, but that is a great book. DJ Elmo, you said, question: have you written any books? Right now, I'm in the process of studying on a book that I plan to be writing in the future. I've been studying on this for about like 5 years, but this book is going to actually be the psychological God concept, why we believe in gods, and what makes us think that there is gods. You know what I mean? So that's on that. I do want to write my own theory of history, and I want to put it all down. But I every time I think I want to start that, I find something new, and I get caught up with you know, obsessing and learning about it. So then, you know, I can put that inside of everything that I know too. And so, and if you keep up on, archaeology, and you keep up on a lot of the evidences that we find, you actually realize that we're always coming to, we're finding more and more and more and more stuff all the time. And so, it's like every time I start to consider writing some about my theory of history, I just keep on getting bombarded with more stuff. So, but I will ultimately write both of those books.
That's what's up. That's
Right.
what's good. That's what's good. And definitely we will definitely be discussing that historical stuff on on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? We will definitely be doing that. So there you'll have plenty of reference information, plenty of source information, everything that you'll need, it'll be right there.
That's a great comment right there. MC Facts is right on. All right, so we can keep on writing. If we get any more questions, we can answer them at the time.
All right, cool. You want me to run this?
Yep.
All right.
Purchase of African World History in the Department of Africana and Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College. Professor John Henrik Clark. I'd like to ask to the stage Dr. Martin Bernal. Dr. Martin Bernal has been a professor of government at Cornell University since 1972 and an adjunct professor of Near Eastern Studies also at Cornell since 1986. Educated at King's College, Cambridge, where he earned his doctorate in Chinese Studies in 1966, and at Peking University, the University of California, and Harvard, Dr. Bernal's works have been widely reviewed and criticized, in many instances as controversial. His chief publications are the two-set volume, Black Athena, The Afro-Asiatic Roots of Classical Civilization, and Cadmean Letters, The Westward Diffusion of the Semitic Alphabet Before 1400 BC. Dr. Martin Bernal.
Can you stop that right there? Yeah, this is the part of history. This, look, like a lot of people don't understand this history, but that is actually a great book, that very last book that she just brought up, because actually the Semitic languages that a lot of people don't understand, go to look at the Phoenician languages, right? And the alphabet of Phoenician language and everything. It's really fucking interesting. If you look at the old Phoenician, and Phoenicians were black, if anybody didn't know, right? If you go look at the alphabet, the Phoenician alphabet, and then you go look at the Hebrew, the so-called Semitic Hebrew alphabet, the Phoenician alphabet, I mean the Hebrew alphabet is quite literally the same thing as the Phoenician, which lends even more credibility to the original Israelites being actually African. Not only that, now, and again, this is not on a religious thing. I do believe that there were people named Israelites, and I do believe that they were African. I don't believe in the religion that they believe in. I don't believe in that. Let's not get it twisted. So please don't, think that I'm like, oh, well, I thought you didn't believe in. Yeah, well, I don't. And I don't believe in any of that shit. But there were Israelite people and Hebrew, the original Hebrew people. And those people were African people. And it's very, very interesting. You got to look at all of these books. Listen to all these authors. It's phenomenal. People don't understand this shit. So, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, the Yiddish language is of German origins, but the original Hebrew is not. So, they're two different languages.
I invite to the stage Professor Mary Lefkowitz. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you. You can sit right here. Mary Lefkowitz is Andrew Mellon Professor in the Humanities at Wellesley College. She is the author of Not Out of Africa, How Afrocentrism Became an Excuse to Teach Myth as History, and is co-editor of Women's Life in Greece and Rome. With fellow Wesleyan Guy McLean Rogers, she co-edited Black Athena Revisited, a collection of 20 essays by scholars from a broad range of disciplines who take dead aim at Dr. Bernal's Black Athena specifically, but contend generally that the Africa-centeredness of scholarship on the roots of what is called classical civilization is blatant revisionism. Dr. Mary Lefkowitz. I invite to the stage Professor Guy McLean Rogers. Professor Rogers, as I said, is also at Wellesley College, where he is an associate professor of Greek and history. With Dr. Lefkowitz, he co-edited Black Athena Revisited and is author of The Sacred Identity of Ephesus, Foundation Myths of a Roman City. Professor Rogers. So here we have a rather distinguished panel, and I would like them first to begin with their conclusions.
Can you pause real quick?
Yep, I got you.
They will have about...
Go ahead, bro.
I just want to let you guys know that you can, again, on that website that I had just gave you, you can actually get Black Athena. It's on there. You know what I mean? So, because I got this book also. Black Athena is on the Z Library. It's going to come up at Z Library, but it's book.org or b-ok.org. Go look it up. Like I said, you can get this. They have it in PDF if you sign up. You can change it to EPUB or whatever form that you need to, and you can download it onto your phone or digital device. And this is a very great site, and you can get a lot of John Henry Clark's books on there. You can get a lot of books that you can't really find in your normal avenues of finding books. So if you have a hard time finding books, or you have a hard time paying for a lot of these books, I'm telling you, this source that I'm giving you is going to be a godsend. Please take advantage of it. All right, go ahead. That's it.
I was just gonna say real quick, can the moderators drop that source in the comments again real quick? Tell it to them one more time, bro.
It's b-ok.org, and it's going to come up as Z Library.
That's what's up. All right, bro, I'm gonna run it.
All right.
About no more than 5 minutes to summarize their major thrust this evening. Professor Clark, we will start with you.
Single point I wish to get across before we start anything. I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.
That was clowning, killing him.
Look.
Look.
They didn't care whether they was telling the truth or not. They just wanted to beat him simply for saying that.
Listen, bro, that was the most gangster statement ever.
Right.
Did you hear him? He told him right before this discussion or debate, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Right then and there, what he did was he said, "You're not my equal. I'm not here to debate you. I'm here to teach you. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it." You see what I'm saying? That is, oh, Lord have mercy. That was the coldest shit anybody could have ever said, ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was crazy.
And I take that attitude with when I teach shit. When I talk to people about shit, I let you know what's fact and what's theory. You know what I mean? And again, I want y'all to understand that I don't say everything that I say is fact. It's up to be discussed and debated. But the fact of the matter is, the things that I know to be true, I don't debate with nobody. I don't give two shits about what you think about it. You
Right.
see what I'm saying? I'll teach you some shit, but I'm not going to debate you on no shit. And that man put it down right there. Those was bars. I don't give a shit what nobody says. It is what it is. After that one statement, this whole debate is over. It's
Yeah,
not
he
even a
killed it.
debate no more.
Yeah, he
You
killed
know
it.
what I mean?
They should have cut him off right in the middle of talking or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right. It's over. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nah,
I
you
just
you
had to
good.
say that shit.
Nah, you good. If you need me to stop it again, let me know.
With Dr. Lefkowitz, he co-edited Black Athena Revisited and is author of The Sacred Identity of Ephesus, Foundation Myths of a Roman City. Professor Rogers. So here we have a rather distinguished panel, and I would like them first to begin with their conclusions. They will have about no more than 5 minutes to summarize their major thrust this evening. Professor Clark, we will start with you.
Single point I wish to get across before we start anything. I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach. Shall we continue or what? I'm not clear now.
Go ahead, Dr. Clark.
You trees?
Go ahead, Dr. Clark.
Broadly speaking, honestly speaking, the book, Not Out of Africa, a good sophomore effort, is not really about Not Out of Africa. Last year, it was the bell curve. This year, it's Not Out of Africa. Next year, it'll be something else. This is part of a world war against the role of African people in the history of the world. If we began mankind, how is it that the last branch of the human race to enter that arena, mark civilization, now think they brought civilization? Now, it is part of a war over and above Professor Lestowitz's book and over and above her political naivete. Her naivete is about what is happening in the Western world. There was a recent book called The Tribes. It diagrammed every people, major people on the earth, searching for a piece of turf for themselves. It left out the African people because the other people, including Asian imperialists, have plans to take over Africa. There have been several articles in the New York Times advocating the...
Now, does that send any chills down anybody's spine? How long ago was this? Does that send any chills down anybody's spine? Because I guarantee you that this was out long before CDs, cell phones, internet even.
Right. Absolutely right. You know what I mean? DJ Elmo is out there, him and Mr. Facts talking about Dr. Rashida, about Dr. Rashida Rashidi, sorry, I'm tripping. And all the research he did That man was cold as shit too. Rest in
We're
peace
gonna have
to
to
Dr.
review some of
Rashidi.
his videos. We're gonna have to review all
Bruh,
these videos.
bruh, he goes in. But yeah, that shit was a real statement. If you pay attention to it, you see exactly what's going on. Again, there's been a lot of things that through the history, and some of y'all don't know that me and Rob have been doing a lot of work together for years,
For
right?
years.
And one of the things that we've always showed you is like Nellie Fuller. You know what I mean? The fact of the matter is a lot of these men who are bringing out a lot of this information, they were right on the money.
Yep.
Dr. Henry Clark, Nellie Fuller Jr., you know what I mean, Dr. Rashidi, fucking Runoko Rashidi, fucking, there's been so many of these individuals that have been right on the money. You know, that people fail to pay attention to them because they dismiss them because who they are, right? They black folks, right? And everybody seems to always want to, you know, eliminate and ignore our black scholars,
That's facts.
right? And the thing is everything that our black scholars that have come before us have told us in a lot of cases have been very correct, very correct.
Yep.
So you have to take into account what they've said, what they've studied, what they've talked about, and you have to then look at what they predicted. And the more of what they talked about in the past that can be substantiated, which a lot of the things that they were talking about can now be substantiated, right? And look at their predictions from the history, and you can see the abundant wealth of knowledge and wisdom that came from these ancestors of ours. You cannot throw this away. You
Right.
cannot throw away our Dr. Henry Clark's. This is the reason why it's so important. It's so great that we have, these videos on a lot of our ancestors that have, passed on, but we still have their words and we can still hear them. You know what I mean? So make sure you take this in and you listen and you really take their words to heart, because when you can watch this stuff 20 and 30 years later, some of these ancestors even 40 years ago, and you can hear their words straight from their mouth, and you can look at what they said and you can look at where we're at right now and see that they were not lying. They knew what the fuck they was talking about, and they predicted the future.
Yeah. Facts.
Dr. Amos Dr. Amos Wilson is awesome. Go get his book. I got it. The Blueprint of Black Power. Keep on going. My
Yeah,
bad,
no,
bro.
I was just about to say we're gonna go through all of that. We're gonna go through all of it. It'll all be on the backup channels. It'll all be on BitChute. We're gonna try to get Spotify popping off and put the audios on there. So the thing is that we want you guys to be able to have the access to the information and the content where you can watch at least portions of this stuff every day, so you can get some healthy information into your brain. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Because
Yeah.
that's important.
Dr. Ben, Amos Wilson, great fucking authors. Man, look, you know what I mean? Ivan Van Sertima. These are, all great, great, like teachers, okay, that academia wanted to ignore, to not give any kind of credence to. This is just pay attention to this, please, you guys. This is all shit that you guys can find, and like I said, I will give you the way to find them if you need it.
Yeah, that's facts. So I need you guys to type in what's my goal for likes. What's my goal for likes?
The recolonization of Africa. This book and other literature of this nature mean to prepare the world to accept a rationalization for the re-enslavement of Africa. Now, And when you deal with the black endorsers of the book, running dogs of the new imperialism, professional white behind kissers, and as Carlos Cook used to say,
You want me to stop it?
No, I just was highlighting his comment because his comment was a real comment. That's all.
Speak on it. Speak on it.
Nah, he wrote it right there. It's right there. Basil Davidson, another good guy to know. He tells the truth about ancient blacks in Egypt. He's white, and the fake white scholars hate him, and it's the truth. It's just the facts. Anytime, anytime you have white scholars telling the truth, they are hated by the majority of white scholars. Toby Williamson is another one that tells the truth about Africans in Egypt. You know what I mean? So a lot of these, again, you have to know where to look because all of the white scholars that tell the truth, they hide. They hide them from you, right? They don't want you to know this shit. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, you know, they don't want you to read those scholars because once you read those scholars, all of a sudden that whitewashing that's been done starts to go away.
Right. Yeah, that's facts. That's facts.
a disgrace to the skin they wear. These people, if I'm be so kind to call them that, are running from themselves and teaching us a lesson that we should have learned long ago. Sometimes white wannabes are more dangerous than whites. And sometimes they'll fight you harder to be accepted by whites. They are running from their own people.
Anybody got chills running down their back listening to that right there, that part too?
Yeah. He talking about the coon class.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about, the coon class right now.
That's exactly what he's talking about. Smart old fella here.
Definition. Now, what we need to look at now is how Professor Lestowitz neglected the white writers through history, the radical European writers who wrote positively of Africa and who identified the relationship of Africa to the ancient Greece. Now, if given time, and I probably won't be given it this evening, I can prove to you with your satisfaction, if you are listening, that Rome and Greece was not European creations. These were Mediterranean-inspired nations and couldn't be created by Europe because at the time there was no Europe. Huh? Huh? All right.
Thank you very much.
Can I take it?
I now ask Professor Lestowitz to present her 5-minute conclusion. Can you hear me?
Well, let me just begin by saying what my book, Not Out of Africa, isn't about. It's not an attack on Afrocentrism. If Afrocentrism means recognition of African achievements in the world, it doesn't seek to deprive Africans of their rightful heritage. Africans do not need Greece to have a cultural heritage. They have a rich cultural heritage. Egypt is just one part of it. They don't need Greece. I'm concerned because what is being offered in some quarters as African history is really a European myth. And thus, instead of getting real information about Africa, what people are learning is something that's really 18th century French. It's Eurocentric, it's based on Greek and Roman myths. I do not myself think that one should do that, because Egypt itself is so fascinating, so rich. There is so much that you can learn and know, and that I myself, as a result of all this work that we have been doing for the last 4 years and more, have come to know and understand about Egypt. I would like to now spend a great deal of the rest of the time that I have learning about that, because it is so different. It's so different from what the Greeks thought that it was. Herodotus was very impressed by Egypt. He wanted to say that everything in Greece that he could think of came or had some connection with Egypt. He didn't really understand the depth and richness of Egypt, which went in directions way beyond what he knew from his own experience in Greece. So I am concerned about that in Not Out of Africa. I try
Can
to
you
explain
pause it real quick?
why the notion of an Egyptian mystery system.
I want to point out something. I wanted you guys, I don't know if anybody noticed what she was saying, right? Where, she said African culture is so abundant, so beautiful, blase, blase. And then she relegated African history and culture to Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well, and
don't know.
then another thing she kept saying was that Africa doesn't need Greece. That was interesting.
Right. But the fact of the matter is, first off, it's not about Africa needing Greece. It's about Africa having a part in the beginnings of Greece, number one, and that should be acknowledged. Right. But number two, I find it a little disparaging when these scholars say stupid shit like, relegating African culture to just ancient Kemet or Egypt history and culture, because that's not the only culture we have.
Right.
Okay, our culture, African history, is the whole continent history, not just this one little portion that everybody looks at as wondrous. You see, and is this is one of the biggest problems that I see when a lot of people are teaching history, especially African history, is they like to relegate it to just ancient Kemet. You see what I'm saying? When just earlier we were talking about, the civilization with Mansa Musa and the Moors, and we're talking about Timbuktu and Nubia, and we're talking about all of these different cultures and history throughout Africa, but they want to relegate it to just Egypt. And that's what this woman just did. And I want to make sure that y'all caught that. All right. Real quick. That's all. That's all I wanted to say, bro.
All right, bro.
Which is basically a French invention. It's based on a novel that everyone has forgotten about, but still you can find in some very obscure libraries. Get it up in Boston even. And that book, which was by a French priest, is based on Greek and Roman sources and tries to describe a Greco-Roman Egypt, and that this myth was preserved in Freemasonry and thus came into American culture. So I'm concerned that that myth not be taught, the notion that there was an Egyptian mystery system. Instead, I'd like to see people learn, all people learn, not just black people, white people, any people learn about Africa and the civilizations therein. And Egypt is particularly appealing because it's so old, it's so impressive, its role in the Mediterranean was so vast, and so many other civilizations were touched by it. Even if only slightly, they did get touched by it, and we have to work on that. I would like to say, just in my last 2 minutes, that from my point of view and the point of view of my colleague Guy Rogers, the ancient world is multicultural, and that one cannot study any one bit of it without studying every other bit of it. And the debate tonight, and I hope the debate will go on for many, many years because so many of us will learn from it, that debate should investigate the degree and extent of those links. Myself, as I think you know, I don't think that Greek philosophy was stolen from Egypt. I do not believe there is any evidence to show that. I think that because Egyptian philosophy, and there is such a thing as Egyptian philosophy and deep Egyptian religious thought, which is very, very complicated, and I myself need to know more about it still. But it's not like the Greeks. It may in many ways be richer and better than some of the concept.
Well, you'll have to leave it right there. I would like Professor Bernal to conclude in 5 minutes or less.
Well, can people hear me? Yeah. I agree with Professor Lefkowitz that Africa does not need Greece. There are plenty of glorious African civilizations. It's just that it happens to have Greece, or to have influenced Greece to a significant thing. This is not an issue of politics, it's an issue of history, the way things were. Now, Greece is extremely important because it is the single greatest source of European culture, and therefore we are concerned with it. And it is very interesting to note that European culture did not begin in Germany or Sweden, but at the extreme southeast corner of Europe, and the reason for that is quite straightforward. It was the closest area to the great civilizations of northeastern Africa and Southwest Asia, and this East Mediterranean complex was the source of Greek and hence, I believe, European culture. Now, that's not to deny that there was a great deal of local development within Greece, and I certainly do not propose that Greek culture was merely a projection or an imitation of Egyptian or Semitic culture. It's clearly a very distinctive culture, but to try and understand Greek culture without knowing the background of the ancient cultures behind it would be as absurd as it would be to study Japanese culture without knowing the Chinese and Korean roots behind it, and no East Asian specialist would dream of doing that. That you have to see the cultures as interrelated, and that the older cultures and the more elaborate cultures had the predominant cultural influence. One of our basic disagreements is that Mary Lefkowitz, sitting in the 20th century, feels that she knows better than the Greek historians of the 5th and 4th, 3rd century, when they said that there were significant influences. Yes, he was very impressed. Yes, he was very Greek. But what struck him were specific similarities. And Herodotus, was a rather plodding historian. He said, well, what's the reason for these similarities? I think they're too close for coincidence. I don't think the Egyptians could have borrowed them from the Greeks because they've had them so long. Therefore, the most likely explanation is that the Greeks took them from the Egyptians. And this is what I call the ancient model. And this model was not overthrown until the early 19th century. Now, Mary Lefkowitz mentions the 18th century novels, and at times, despite the attention she's devoted to dismissing my book, I sometimes feel she hasn't read it, because I do devote quite a few pages to the novel Setos, which she talks, and I too have read it. It had to be sent by interlibrary loan to me. And I do think it is important in the formation of Masonic thought. But what she does not bring forward is the fact that this was perfectly orthodox history as understood in the 18th century, and going back beyond the 18th century to the view that the Greeks and Romans had of the Egyptian sources of their own culture. Now, I think that the Greeks were, on the whole, a very intelligent people, and I respect their philosophy, their art, their democracy, their science, but I also respect their history, and this is a great anomaly in Mary Lefkowitz's approach, in that she says they're very good in these other respects, but they cannot be trusted with their own history. So that I want to bring that out, that one has. Now, she says that modern classics has dismissed all this, and it's true that the predominant view of modern classicists is that the debts to Egypt and Phoenicia, and I don't want to underestimate the importance of Levantine or Southwest Asian influences on Greece, that these influences were exaggerated by the Greeks, and I think that they clearly were I think they were properly developed, and to some extent, the Greeks may even have played down because they were very conscious of being Greek and proud as being Greeks, and they were affected by two forces. On the one hand, they wanted to plug in to the ancient civilizations and give themselves cultural depth. On the other hand, they were very conscious of being Greeks and wanted not to be surpassed culturally by the Egyptians and Phoenicians, who are still very much around. So they had two forces working on them, modern scholars working in an intensely racist 19th and 20th century had no double force. They had the single force wanting to make Greece pure, white, and European, and the ideological pressure that that put on the scholars led to what I see as the recent dismissal of Egyptian and Phoenician influences on ancient Greece.
Thank you.
Wow.
Professor
I
Rogers,
think he laid it out right
please
there
do
too.
present your
You said
conclusion
what?
in 5 minutes or less.
Yeah, I think he really let it go. Now, again, I actually stand a little bit closer to Dr. Henry Clark. I think this gentleman actually did a very good job of articulating the truth, right? And he pointed out that what she was doing was she was trying to say that she knew better than the Greeks, right? She knew better than Herodotus. She knew better than, you know what I mean, than all these people, the ancient Greeks who wrote about this, where they are actually admitting, right, of their taking of civilization from, ancient Kemet and things of that nature, right? And the Africans, right? And I think this kind of goes, you can kind of see it in a lot of different people's writing, like Homer wrote, you know, that had it not been for the beautiful, exotic Nubians, white folks basically, or Mediterranean, or the Romans and the Greeks would still be walking on all fours as barbarians, right? She's trying to take away, Herodotus and everything that he said. She's trying to take away from these people who are actually speaking on it at the time with higher character, clearly higher character than our modern so-called scholars, our European scholars, right? And I think this really kind of shows exactly what that is. And he just called it out. Dr. Henry Clark called it out, and it's just a really interesting breakdown where you're seeing again, it's not a lot of white, scholarship that does this, and it's not a lot of white scholarship that admits that no, there was more, a stealing or taking or a borrowing of, African culture that
Right.
nobody ever wants to talk about. You know what I mean? So it's really, really, really interesting. But this is the reason why you have to search through all of the works, right? From Homer to, what I mean, to even Pythagoras tells these stories. So it is what it is, and nobody ever wants to talk about it because they want to call it centrism, or they want to call it myth, and they want to say pseudo or something like that. But the deeper you go into history, again, the blacker it gets, and the more honest so-called whites, right, clear people, palm colored people, you know, tend to be showed to be as liars, right? So, I just want to point that out because I think it's really, really, really interesting. This is a great debate that if you haven't seen this, you got to watch it. Is this the long version or what?
Yeah, what I was thinking we could do, because it's getting close to that 4-hour mark,
Right.
is when is the next time you think that that you can when is the next time that you think you can hop on?
Today's Tuesday?
Today is Wednesday.
Oh, okay, it is Wednesday. Huh? I can do it tomorrow morning, probably. Yeah, most likely.
Tomorrow morning. Okay. So okay, yeah, we can do that. I'll just I'll switch what I had for tomorrow to a different day.
Well,
And
no, don't do that. Let's
no,
do it
because that shit
on.
I had for tomorrow is lame and garbage. This is, in my opinion, this is probably better shit to talk about.
Um, yeah, I mean, I just have to. I got a time limit tomorrow because tomorrow I go. I'm off today. That's why I'm able to stay on a little bit longer. But tomorrow, I have to. We probably have to keep it to going. Maybe 3 hours.
You off today? You said.
Yeah, I'm off today. So
I could probably. I think I had to check. I could switch what I had to what I could switch what I had tonight to another day and do another one of these tonight. Would you guys rather that? If you guys would rather that, type that in the comments. Type in a 1. If not, type in a 2. That'd be cool though. I think that would be good to do though.
yeah, because I mean, the thing is what you see is that in a lot of ways, a lot of people don't really get this, but I know a lot of the brothers in here I'm noticing that they all understand this, that there was an understanding, underlining understanding in Greek culture and Roman culture, that a lot of the knowledge and a lot of what they got came from black folks, right? African, ancient Kemetic folks, and they actually acknowledge the fact that a lot of their gods and their you know leaders, their heads, the figureheads, and shit like that. They were often African. You know what I mean? And the thing is what you have is you have white academia that's trying to whitewash this whole history and be like, no, 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 they were all white. Well, no, they weren't white because there was no concept of white at the time, and they weren't European because there was no Europe at the time. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And what she's trying to make the argument of is that Roman Greece culture is the beginnings of European history, which that is absolutely false. It is a clearly Mediterranean history. And Mediterranean is not Europe. It's not at all. It's just that Europe claims the Mediterranean. You see, and they
Right.
claim that is their history also, but it's not. So it's just it's very interesting, but you see it going on right here, right in front of your eyes, and this is
Yeah.
classic academia.
And
So
my thing is that's one of the reasons why we have to stay on it and continuously update this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to constantly put out videos and content because we got to make sure that we maintain the momentum and also make sure that we have constant evidence, constant updates, constant rescholarship with citation and all that stuff, because you know what I'm saying, like our history, everything is constantly under attack. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, we can do it either tonight or tomorrow morning. It's up to you. We'll figure it out, and I got
Shit, we
some.
could do both.
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple books that will actually go into this and it'll kind of back up the claims because from old authors and old historians and going all the way back to Homer and Herodotus and going back to all these different people.
Right,
So
right.
I have a whole bunch of this, a whole bunch of books in this. So yeah,
Well,
this is
I'll
what it
schedule
is.
it for tonight and tomorrow morning then, and I'll just move the other stuff.
You too.
Yeah,
Well,
cause like to me this shit is more important. You know what I'm saying?
right. Hey, and Val, I appreciate that
Yeah, we
comment
definitely
real
appreciate
quick.
that.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah, it is what it is, brother. You know what I
Uh,
mean? Let's just give me a call and we'll make sure we're both free.
yeah, yeah, that's what's up.
All right. Well,
All right,
so
what's in?
you want to finish? So do you want to? Since they got their openings, could you save it right here? We
Yeah,
can end it now, right? And then we can start from the continuation. I mean, how long is this one? Is it? Isn't this one like
Oh,
2
it's
hours?
long, bro. We're gonna be going through other stuff. Like we could talk more about
Yeah.
Atlantis, jump on here. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
this is gonna be a long series of videos getting through this. So you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Greece right now. I saw an interview with Greek Black family. No, absolutely. MC Factor, you already know what it is. And the thing is people like to deny the truth. Again, there's something about to white folks, for some odd reason, there's something about white folks where they have this obsession from eradicating Black history, right? They have this thing. I don't know what it is in them. They have this bug in their ass where it's like they feel this absolute need to wipe out anything African, anything Black out of history books. You know what I mean? It's just like when we talk, they do it all the way to now, right? Because the fact of the matter is, we have the Civil War, right? And I actually just put out an article on that, and I think I even sent it to you, Rob. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
Oh
But
yeah.
the article, you know, they talk about the Civil War, how the North won the war, but the North was losing the war until they allowed Black soldiers. But you don't learn about that in high school. You don't learn that nowhere. And when we talk about that, right? And I was actually just in, another space and on Clubhouse where they were talking about this, and I was in a Twitter space that were talking about this, and there's white people out there. When you tell them, no, what are you talking about? Fucking Civil War wasn't won by just white people, and white people were losing. The North was actually losing the war, and it wasn't until the Black soldiers were able to enlist and actually fight in the war that we started winning. And he denies it. That's not true. That's not true. There were so many people. There were so many white people that just denied it, and I had to give them different sources and say, yeah, go read a little bit, go study a little bit more, and fucking, when you come back, fucking make sure you suck my Black dick. You know what I mean? So,
That's funny.
and so it's like they have this obsession with taking us out of everything. And I don't, I mean, I think that's something to kind of quandary on and talk about, to be completely honest. But, that's a whole different subject.
Yeah, that's a different story for a different day. So MC
Right.
Fact wants to know what time tonight. For me, I could probably do 11:45 Eastern time. What would that be for you?
What time?
11:45 p.m. Eastern time. I could do midnight or whatever though. I mean
Well,
that's
11:45, 3 hours behind that is what, 8 for me?
yeah, what 8:45?
8:45. Yeah, I think that'd be all right. I could do something around there.
All right, that's what's up.
7:45, 8:45. I think that might be doable.
All right, cool. And then the morning will be the usual time, 9:45.
Right. Right. And if you can't make it, you can always watch the replay anyway. So
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
that's facts.
So yeah, absolutely, bro.
Yeah, well shit, that's what's up. I will actually I'll get those ready then. You know what I'm saying? Because I think we killed that, and your boy is getting. I ain't even gonna lie, your boy is getting tired. You know what I'm saying? Your boy getting tired. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Don't trip. Because today, look, because today the fact of the matter is that, I know a lot of people, some people knew about, what we were talking about, and some people kind of have a limited understanding. But the thing is I want y'all to know that there's a lot more evidence, even though a lot of the evidence has gone, there's a lot more evidence for, you know, Atlantis than a lot of people want to give credit to. And I think the biggest reason why they want to wipe out this story of Atlantis is it shows the great civilizations that were there thousands and thousands of years before they ever fucking were anywhere around.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And this also leaks to, the fact that there were indigenous Black folks that made it all the way to the Americas that far back in time, even further in my belief. I actually think even further. So again, a lot of this stuff is connected without people actually realizing. And if you don't realize how, the history of even Atlantis and Western African history is not, congruent and has a direct connection to Black folks being in what we today call South America, Central America, and North America. You're sadly mistaken. Very, very sadly mistaken.
Right. Yeah, no, that's facts, bro. That's big facts. That's big facts. So you guys make sure that you watch this video, and you guys definitely got to check out that last one that I did. Make sure you guys drop a whole lot of comments. We will see y'all. So y'all got 2 episodes in a row, so y'all should be happy. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that y'all are. I hope that y'all enjoy the content. I'm going to put the playlist at the end so you guys can go back and binge watch all of our Reality Check Virtual Radio Blacklight Revelations podcasts, and we will see you again at 11:45 tonight. All right?
That's right.
That's what's up. All right, y'all. Peace.
Peace.